Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Beaufort County Board of Education to order. This meeting is being live streamed by the county channel. Requests for public comments will be accepted between 5 and 5:30 by sending an email with your name, phone number, and topic to Robin Cushenberry at beaufort.k12.sc.us. You will receive a phone call during public comments where you will be able to speak and address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes on issues within the board's domain. The forum will be limited to 30 minutes. If you are in person, you may address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes on issues within the board's domain. Each speaker must fill out a public comment card. Please see the board clerk for a card. Requests for the second public comments will be accepted between 7 and 7:30 p.m. in the same manner. The second public comments will take place prior to adjournment, no later than 9 p.m. The second forum will be limited to 15 minutes. In the event the board has not finished addressing all items on tonight's agenda, the board will reconvene at 6 p.m. on October 19th, the next business day, to finish the agenda items, unless a motion is made to extend the meeting. First order of business, I need a motion to go into executive session. Dr. Watts.
Thank you, Vice Chair Robine. I move that the Board of Education go into executive session for the following reasons. Discussion of negotiations incident to district-wide bottle filler projects, guaranteed maximum price amendment number 4 to Charles Perry Partners Incorporated pursuant to South Carolina Code Annals Section 3470A2. Discussion of negotiations incident to district bipolar ionization projects, guaranteed maximum price, amendment number 5 to Charles Perry Partners Incorporated, pursuant to South Carolina Code Annals Section 3470A2. Discussion of negotiations incident to Mossy Oaks Elementary School safety, security, and technology infrastructure, guaranteed maximum price, amendment number 28 to Thompson Turner Construction, pursuant to South Carolina Code Annals Section 3470A2. Discussion of negotiations incident to Bluffton Elementary School, summer 2023, HVAC scope, guaranteed maximum price, amendment number 24 to MB Con, pursuant to South Carolina Code Annals Section 3470A2. An update on safety security plans pursuant to South Carolina Code Annals Section 3420C.
Do I have a second? I second. Angela Middleton, seconds. Any discussion?
Mr. Smith, hands up.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith?
Madam Chair, I'll let you know who will be advising us on these amendments.
Staff,
How about the negotiation as well?
all
Staff,
of it. Staff is all of it.
thank you.
Any other discussion? At this time, all those in favor of going into executive session, please signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. Smith?
Also, aye.
The motion passes unanimously. That's 9-0. Mr. Mel Campbell is not here for the vote. We will go into executive session. It's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Beaufort County School Board back to public session. Are there any actions necessary or appropriate coming out of executive session?
Yes, yes, ma'am, Madam Vice Chair. We have a few motions here. The first motion is, I move that the Board of Education approve Amendment Number 4 with Charles Perry Partners, Inc. for the district-wide bottle filler projects based on the guaranteed maximum price GMP of $799,312.
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Watts. Is there any discussion regarding this motion? Seeing none, you can't see Dr. Wisniewski. She's participating.
I'm here.
I don't see her. Okay, seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. 10-0.
Madam Chair, I abstain.
Oh, you abstained. Okay.
And I'm going to abstain on that.
We can't hear you.
And I'm going to abstain as well. Yeah.
Okay, correction, 8-2.
The next motion, I move that the Board of Education approve Amendment Number 5 with Charles Perry Partners, Inc. for the district-wide bipolar ionization projects based on the guaranteed maximum price, GMP, of $707,874.
I'll second. Ms. Boatright seconds. Any discussion on this motion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions?
Wisniewski abstain.
9-0-1 with Rachel Wisniewski abstaining. Continue, please.
I move that the Board of Education approve Amendment Number 28 with Thompson Turner Construction for the remaining safety, security, and technology infrastructure at Mossy Oaks Elementary School based on the guaranteed maximum price, GMP, of $2,722,039.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Earl Campbell, second. Any discussion regarding this motion? Okay, seeing none, I call the vote. Those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Wisniewski abstains.
9-0-1.
And our last motion, Madam Vice Chair. I move that the Board of Education approve Amendment Number 24 with MBCon Construction Company, Inc. for the Bluffton Elementary School Summer 2023 HVAC scope based on the guaranteed maximum GMP of $658,754.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Dr. Gwatz? Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes, I'm going to abstain.
Wisniewski abstains.
8-0-2.
That concludes all of our motions coming out of executive session, Madam
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair.
Thank you. I now need a motion for approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
A second.
Bill Campbell, second. Any discussion regarding tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, I call the vote. Those of you in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Wisniewski aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 10-0. At this time, I invite you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. be seated and we will recognize a moment of silence. Tonight we are recognizing moments of silence for the following people. Cynthia Arboghetti White. She was a board member from 1988 to 1990. She passed away October 2nd, 2022. Alice Blaze Wright was employed with Beaufort County School District from 1969 to 1999. She was employed as a secretary, a teacher, an assistant principal, and personnel director. She passed away October 17th, 2022. And finally, the chair to the right of me is empty. Empty of body, but full of spirit. Our chair, David Stribinger, passed away on Sunday. David joined the Beaufort County Board of Education in 2016. Prior to being selected as chair in January 22, Mr. Stribinger chaired many committees: operations, technology, ad hoc results, ad hoc coherent governance. As a board member, David was focused on results, setting SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, and time-bound. That was David's mantra. Simply put, David was an amazing board member. I know that David is looking down on us tonight, encouraging us to move forward. Please join us for moments of silence. Thank you. The media has been properly notified. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the student performance.
I'm Adam McCormick. I'm the chorus and orchestra teacher at Bluffton Middle School. With me right now is a detachment of 7th and 8th grade orchestra students from Bluffton. We're performing 2 pieces for you. Our first piece tonight is Fantasy on a Japanese Folk Song by Brian Holmes. Best position. one more piece for you. This is Dragon Hunter by Richard Meyer. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay, our next item agenda, Dr. Rodriguez, points of celebration.
Thank you, and thank you very much to our students once again for the beautiful performance. This evening, under points of celebration, the next component is a character education for September for students in Southern Beaufort County. Our character education program was formed to support parents' efforts to develop good character in their children, and tonight we're celebrating the Character Ed Student of the Month exhibiting the character trait of acceptance. Acceptance is defined as the action or process of being received as adequate or suitable, typically to be admitted into a group or received by others. We're happy to announce that our Character Education Student of the Month in Southern Beaufort County for September is Saul Gandika Villamizar. Saul is a student at Hilton Head Island High School. He's a freshman there. And here to tell us more about Saul is multilingual teacher Paige Collier. Paige, can you step up to the
Okay, is this good?
Get your mouth closed.
Turn it down a little bit.
Is it on?
Yeah, so get your mouth.
Hello, my name is Paige Collier, and I am Saul's English teacher. When Saul came in this year, Boy, is he a big, bright ball of energy. Saul loves people with his whole heart. And even though he's still an English learner, you'd never be able to tell by how confident he is when he speaks in English. Saul goes out of his way to communicate with people beyond his own language, Spanish, English. We have a student that speaks Russian. We have a student that speaks Bulgarian. And together, they're able to learn English together. And it's really sweet to notice them interact within the classroom. Saul does excellent with all of his studies. And I'm incredibly I'm incredibly proud of Saul and all that he's accomplished. So congratulations, Saul. I can't think of anyone more deserving for this month.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're good.
Saul and family, thank you for being here, and congratulations once again. Next on points of celebration is District Teacher of the Year. Each year, a selection committee of district staff and community members has the arduous task of selecting the District Teacher of the Year. The District Teacher of the Year represents the talented, highly qualified teachers in our school district. Becoming District Teacher of the Year is a three-step process that begins when school-level Teachers of the Year are selected in April. Those wishing to compete for District Teacher of the Year submit detailed applications by the end of July. After that, a selection committee consisting of parents, former educators, and community leaders from across Beaufort County reviews the applications and rates them using a numerical scoring system. The 5 highest scoring applicants are named as finalists. In the last step of the district, at the district level, the finalists are interviewed by a separate review committee, again composed of judges from across the county. The judges score candidates based on how well they respond to questions about their teaching methods and current education issues. After those interviews, the panel selects the District Teacher of the Year, and that person represents Beaufort County in the South Carolina State Teacher of the Year program. In case you missed it, we have the surprise announcement video for you to view tonight.
Laverne Stewart, Hilton.
Loudly cheering for this year's Beaufort County School District's Teacher of the Year, Hilton Head Island Middle School English teacher Dr. Laverne Stewart was announced as a 2022-2023 District Teacher of the Year during a ceremony on Hilton Head Island.
This is an amazing honor. I just wish my mom was here to be a part of it. She was also a teacher a year in Beaufort County. I'm completely overwhelmed. I almost have no words for it. I do thank the selection staff and especially the teachers that I work with at Hilton Head Island Middle School, that they thought that I was worthy to represent our school, and now that the teachers and the selection committee believes that I'm worthy to represent Beaufort County School District, a district that I graduated from, and I'm now a second-year teacher, and I just love the fact that I'm able to have this honor. I am just humbled and blessed.
Dr. Stewart's mother inspired her to become a teacher. She also taught English in the district, and Dr. Stewart's proud she followed in her footsteps and is carrying on her legacy.
My love of reading and writing came from her. Everything that I do is I'm doing my best to honor her memory and who she was as an educator in Beaufort County School District, and just what she has instilled in me and put into me. I want to put that into my students to pass that legacy on of love for reading and learning and just life in general.
Dr. Stewart has been teaching for 22 years.
I love my kids. I love what I do. I enjoy going to work, and I love making a difference, not just for the years that they're in my class, but also beyond, and seeing my students become great members of our community and our society.
Dr. Stewart's principal wasn't surprised she was named Teacher of the Year. She always goes above and beyond, helping students and teachers.
She works so well, not only with the students and the families, but also with the other teachers in the building. And she's got a very collaborative approach. She works hard to represent not only the students, but the teachers in our building. And she works tirelessly, and she gets herself into everything she can to make sure that she's providing the best outcomes for our students.
During the ceremony, every school's 2022-2023 Teacher of the Year was recognized. On Hilton Head Island, Ron Lopes, Beaufort County School District.
It is my pleasure to introduce to you tonight our 22-23 District Teacher of the Year, Dr. Laverne Stewart from Hilton Head Island Middle School. Dr. Stewart is a second-generation English language arts educator. Her mother, Dr. Vernell Stewart, was also a 7th grade ELA educator in Beaufort County. Dr. Stewart holds a doctorate degree in Christian education from Cathedral Bible College, a Master's of Education in Gifted and Talented Education from Converse College, and a Master's of Science degree from Wheelock College. She has also earned an Educational Specialist in Education Administration degree from South Carolina State University. Congratulations, Dr. Stewart.
To Dr. Rodriguez, to the board, I thank you for this honor, and I will do my very best to make Beaufort County proud as I go through the year representing our school district and Hilton Head Island Middle School. Thank you.
That concludes our points of celebration.
Okay. Thank you. Next on our agenda are public comments. I want to take a moment to review the rules for speaking. Speakers addressing the board must confine their comments to issues within the domain of the board. Refrain from racial comments, obscenities, vulgarities, and references to specific individuals by name. And not commit other breaches of respect. Not exceed 3 minutes. Visible audio timing device will be used. Please be respectful of the 3-minute rule. Complete this card, which you've already done, including providing one or more specific topics. So we are ready to go. The first speaker tonight will be Skip Hoagland, and he is speaking regarding school funds.
Thank you very much. Skip Hoagland, Windmill Harbor. I have no children. I'm here for the finances. I'm here tonight because the school board and the school leadership seems to have many problems. I once again remind you of a study to educate you by Dr. Fusco, the Yankee Institute, on how to stop, catch, and prevent corruption and waste in public schools. You can Google this. I will not go into all details on past problems with Drew Davis, Jeff Moss, email servers, etc. My focus is this board and its acting chairman, made up of part-time public servants who have simply lost control to the employees and lost the trust of those who elected them. Google search reveals you are not alone, and school waste and corruption is nationwide. In fact, not one time in the history of the United States has a forensic audit been performed in a school district, a town government, or a nonprofit tax-funded chamber where wrongdoing was not discovered, and unfortunately prison the result most of the time. Recently in Elizabeth, New Jersey, it was discovered the lawyers overbilled the school board $1 million. Recently in Berkeley County, South Carolina School District, Chief Financial Officer who oversaw $260 million general fund pleaded guilty to stealing $1.3 million, and I helped to facilitate that arrest. Former Wayne County School System employee charged with fraud, embezzlement, and theft. Wake County School System, $3.8 million in phony invoices, fraud, theft, and kickbacks. It goes on and on, so tonight I want to ask nicely that you all agree to vote for a forensic audit of our $296 million school budget at a small cost of twice the cost of whatever you're paying for a regular audit, let's say $100,000, and before you are forced by authorities at some point, you'll have to do this, and you don't want a legacy to be unwilling to live by your campaign promises to serve our children and our community with transparency, accountability, proven performance metrics to make sure our tax funds are being spent properly. What you don't want also is to be publicly embarrassed in the community to your friends, neighbors, and families as being unwilling or an accomplice, co-conspirator, or just incompetent by allowing this total non-transparency to continue. There's no logical answer why anyone would oppose a forensic audit. I stake my 50-year business career in the fact that once an audit is completed, waste, wrongdoing, and convictions could result. How can we lead an educational system with those who refuse to be educated and honest with themselves that some form of corruption is more than likely to exist? Further, you are hired to approve, protect, and spend money like it's your own money, not play money like the game of Monopoly. Imagine 296 million was yours and you were going to invest this money with me. Can any of you with a straight face say you would allow 296 million, it's such a big number.
Thank you, your time is up.
Not require a forensic audit, especially when Jeff Moss was running this money.
Mr.
and we let him
Hoagland,
go.
your time is up. You may continue in the second.
That's
You
fine.
can come back
I
at the
won't finish.
second.
That's
Okay,
fine.
all
I
right.
respect the 3 minutes.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Okay. The next speaker, oh my gosh, I need help. I've got to learn how to say your name. It is, Castanino. Okay, Mr. Castanino, I will practice.
It's like it's spelled.
Okay, Castanino, he's going to speak on school books.
So first thing I want to do is, if we have any minors in here, I would ask them to leave the room. There's going to be some words that are in my presentation that I don't think are appropriate for children. So are we good?
Okay.
So I'm going to first start off by saying that what I'm going to read to you guys is an excerpt from a book that's in multiple schools in this county, and it was very disturbing to me. I'm going to expect that my First Amendment rights will not be violated during what I read. So I'm going to read a couple excerpts. His arms wrap around me, and his rough hands go straight to my boobs. I try to knock them away, but I am no match for his strength. You like it rough, because I'm just the guy to give it to you that way. No charge, yanking on my hair, pushing me to my knees. He flips me over. You're even prettier from behind, you know that? I hear his zipper lower. It's the loudest sound ever. He yanks down my shorts in a single swift motion. He's on me. He's humiliating me in every possible way, right on my kitchen floor. As promised, he's rough, biting, pounding, shredding, ripping. Pleased, the word bounces off him like ping pongs weakly in my ears. Trying to fight him off only fuels him. You ever seen a ramrod like Dan's? I shake my head as I roll the condom down over it. No, of course you haven't. Let's see just how good you are. I close my eyes, fight not to gag at the taste of the lube, trying not to choke on his thrusts against my throat. These are some of the lines that are in a book in our schools, in middle schools and in high schools. This is unacceptable, okay? There are 13 pages of that content just from this book alone. That was one book. I just want you guys to know. These are minors that are in our schools. Kids that have access to this book are as young as 11 years old. I hope that none of you up here think that this is appropriate for 11-year-old kids in our schools. The school district, the administration, and the librarians need to be held accountable for these books in our schools. They need to be held to the same laws as anyone else would be, because if I gave a book like this, or a bookstore gave a book like this to a minor, that person would probably be shut down or arrested. I'm letting you guys know that this week I'm going to go and file a criminal complaint to Beaufort County Sheriff's Office for 4 South Carolina codes that are being violated because of these books in our schools. We've had enough. We've given the district enough warning to get this stuff out of the schools. You have chose to ignore it.
Thank you. All
Our next public speaker is Stephanie Harris, and she will be speaking about school safety in the reunification process.
Hello. I'm Stephanie Harris. I am a parent of 2 Beaufort High School students, so sorry if I get a little emotional, but I went through the active shooter thing 2 weeks ago. Stood outside waiting for our children to be released. Thank goodness it was live to us. There was no active shooter, thank goodness. But I do want to bring to the attention the reunification process. The reunification process was, don't get me wrong, Beaufort High, everybody did amazing. Law enforcement, first responders, everybody did wonderful. But I think the reunification process needs to be readdressed. I think having a 2-stage process where they're checking IDs at the first stage and then checking IDs again at the second stage needs to be readdressed. It was taking forever to get our students. One computer would say that, yes, you are an emergency contact, and then another computer would say, no, I'm sorry, you're not. So after waiting for 3 hours for our kids to be picked up and for us to take emergency kids with us, when we know we're on the list, we weren't able to because according to the admin there, they were using different computers. So I just think that it slowed everything down. We're trying to get our kids, we've been there for 5 hours, we've shown our IDs at the beginning, we've given them to admin, we get those back with our kids. Having to go through that a second time is senseless. With that said, one other thing that we've been talking about at our School Improvement Council meetings is hall monitors at Beaufort High School. So I have 2 daughters. One of them's a type 1 diabetic. She needs to have access to a restroom when she needs to. She goes to the nurse to take her insulin, but she's supposed to be drinking water all day. They can't go to the bathrooms without except during special times. And a lot of this is because of the things that are happening in the restrooms at the school. And I'm not saying that Beaufort High is the only one that has this going on. There are drug issues in the bathrooms. There is marijuana being smoked. There are vapes being smoked. So when the kids go into the restrooms, there are kids in there doing these things, and they can't get into the actual facilities to use them. With that said, there's also fights that are happening in the restrooms as well. I just saw a video of one last week. Sadly, my daughter was a victim of one at Ladies Island Middle School last year where she was jumped in the bathroom and beat up. I think the school needs hall monitors again. When I was there, class of 1994, we had 2 hall monitors. We didn't have SROs at the time, and I know they're trying to get an additional SRO in there, which we appreciate, but I think hall monitors would help. I think those hall monitors would help because those SROs can't be everywhere at all the time. So those hall monitors would help monitor student parking lots, monitor the hallways to make sure that kids can get in and out of those restrooms without other people being in there doing whatever it is that they do or fighting, etc. So please bring hall monitors back into the schools. They are necessary, and I think the budget would allow it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is Julie Matthews, and she's also speaking on school safety.
Good evening, School Board, and thank you once again for allowing me to address you with some very important issues. My name is Julie Matthews. I'm a mother, a grandmother, a business owner, a Beaufort County citizen, and a voter. 2 weeks ago on October 4th, I addressed the board regarding some disgusting and inappropriate books, if you want to call them books. I'd like to know the county's procedures in selecting the books, how they're approved for these libraries, the Beaufort County School Libraries. Are these books vetted by a team who have read and reviewed these books? If not, why not? And if so, were those individuals vetted? Because there are several that are beyond poisonous to young, impressionable minds. My next topic, on the one I'm most passionate about, which I also discussed on October 4th, is school safety in regards to school shootings. Quite ironically, the very next day, there were live active shooter hoaxes at multiple schools statewide. Though this was an extremely expensive hoax paid for by the tax dollars, and first responders did an exemplary job, we should all thank God that they were not actual shooters. As you know, Beaufort County is the second fastest growing county in South Carolina, and approximately 22,000 students, that's 22,000 impressionable and vulnerable souls, not to mention the countless teachers, administrators, employees that are all equally vulnerable to a horrific, violent act if one were to occur. I'm aware the school board has been provided with information and suggestions regarding protecting and securing schools from gun violence. I'm not here with any political motive regarding guns or the Second Amendment. I'm here to implore each and every one of you to research and discuss the many options so we can make our schools safe schools. I speak for all parents, grandparents, and anyone that has a loved one at any one of the schools and administrative buildings. This is a true threat, and what happened on October 5th should certainly have opened everyone's eyes. I encourage any one of you to reach out to me to address this issue. I'm quite sure that securing and protecting our schools is of the utmost importance to all. Please feel free to reach out to me if there's anything I can do moving forward on this. Let's not ponder and wait for a horrific event, a real event, to occur. It's just a matter of time.
Thank you. I'd just like to state that, to restate our policy, that we do not respond to public comments, but we listen to them. So, thank you. Oh, we have 2 phone calls. I'm sorry. I thought we were done. Okay.
Squarely in the district's court to make a written policy regarding parents' rights to review standardized tests for their children as per the federal ESEA. I would also like to once again bring up the fact that we can never have an actual conversation with board members during these meetings. It's a very easy way for you to dismiss what we say, and there has to be a solution. I am asking you revisit the online registration process to remove the mandatory acceptance of the SEL in the Code of Conduct page and the medical information as well. Lastly, I would like to remind you that X-rated and inappropriate books are still available for checkout in our school libraries. If children cannot attend R-rated movies, they shouldn't be able to check out X-rated books. There shouldn't be a form to have these books reviewed. They should simply be removed, as it is criminal to have them available to minors. This time next week, I expect these books to be removed from the libraries and classrooms in our district. If they're not, I will also be filing criminal complaints. Here's the warning. I also, funnily enough, have a few excerpts from a book that is available in 2 high schools and a middle school in our district. If there are any minors listening on YouTube, or if there are any children in the room, you may want to have them step out. I'm nauseous in my stomach, but hot tight in my TWAT, and I think I want it back. He slaps me and my ears sing separate songs from each other as he pumps my PUSSY in and out, aw, I come. He bites me hard, he humps, he slams his hips into me hard. I scream pain and he comes. He slaps my thighs like cowboys do horses on TV. He orgasms in me, his body shaking, calling me fat mama. Big hole. You love it, he says. Say you love it. Then he says, your pussy, PUSSY is popping like grease in a frying pan. This is available to children as young as 11. And I stopped. That is the part that's not so bad. So if we're allowing children to read this in our schools, where does it end? This is sick, this is criminal, and I, for one, don't want my children reading it. I'm not naive to the fact that all of this is out there in this world, but I do not expect our school district to be offering it to children to just come and take out and check out as they please. So I will be checking that this time next week. These books are out of the district, or I will be filing criminal complaints. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Ivy. Hello. I can now. I'm going to put you on speakerphone. You'll have 3 minutes if you can state your first and your last name, please, okay? All right, hold on. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ivy Salai. I'm the mother of High School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Earlier today, but wanted my concerns to be heard on public record as well. First, I want to offer my condolences for the passing of our chair. Second, I think each of you were probably equally horrified the week before last when Beaufort High School was spotted. Really thankful that it was a hoax. The terror was still the same. I hope that the agenda would include a discussion of safety in our schools. Last week with some suggestions from that could help increase safety. I hope you had a chance to review that email and visit the websites that provided more information. I know in the past the board has directed the superintendent to investigate the cost of items the board was interested in implementing. After hearing back from one board member, I guess you cannot ask for specific brand name items, so I hope that you will consider asking for these items to be priced, but using generic descriptors for the items that I sent you. I hope that you will consider doing this for the future safety of our students, teachers, administration, and staff. Thank you for your consideration and continued service to our school.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the clock update. Mr. Barber?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Good to see all of you board members, and thanks for those who have attended our meetings. We can have the presentation up, please. This is our third quarter update of 2022. Last month, the clock conducted its 34th meeting since the beginning of the referendum project. For a point of celebration, the Citizen-led Oversight Committee was recognized by the South Carolina School Board Association as champions for public education. On October the 4th board meeting, our committee was recognized by that board as the champions for public education. This award is presented to community residents, organizations, or business or industries who significantly contribute to the benefit of public schools. We were nominated for that award by Beaufort County and by the board. And of 73 counties, Beaufort County was recognized, and the clock was recognized for their contribution. We want to thank the board for doing that. And this evening, we want to dedicate this award to Chairman Stribinger. Mr. Rodriguez, Dr. Rodriguez, please make sure that it is displayed in the public office with that proclamation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now let's move to our projects, and let's talk about our large scope projects. Let's talk about Beaufort Elementary. That project is at the closeout phase. The total amount from the referendum was $20,831,873. Encumbered and paid to date is $20,782,633. And so we are progressing to close that project out. So Beaufort Elementary is in good standing. As you can see, it contains mainly safety, security, renovations, and technology upgrades. We still have a couple of punch list items to do from a final change order, but that will be closed out shortly. Let's talk about Battery Creek High School. This is a replacement school it's an upgrade for Battery Creek High School. A significant amount of funds are being spent on Battery Creek, $56 million. Paid to date, we have paid $35,335,401. This is being done by MB Con Construction. You can see some of the photographs of the renovation of Battery Creek High School. Now, some of the areas, the Building A is scheduled to be completed in this month. Building B, the front office and guidance, they're doing punch list items. Building C, which is the media center and support spaces, demolition underground work is proceeding. Building B2 and C2, that's the general classrooms and the staff office, demolition is 95% complete. The next slide, please. The ongoing around Building G, there's several items, including the locker rooms, weight room. Also in Building F, which is the art band room, there's demolition proceeding. In site athletics, there's a tremendous amount of work there with ticket booths, concession, a new field house, utilities, storage areas, and also additional field upgrades. So that's Battery Creek High School. Let's talk now about Robert Smalls. Robert Smalls, as we know, is a new school replacing the current Robert Smalls school. The funding for Robert Smalls is $68,903,283. Paid to date is $26,149,078. Next slide, please. We are progressing. We are having some scheduling issues with Robert Smalls. The Schedule A, Area A, the gym is going well. Area B, the small classroom is going well. But our holdup right now, Robert Smalls, is what we like to call the heart of any construction project. It's the main switch gear that supplies all of the power for the school. That is supposed to be delivered next April, which is, we are hoping will be on time. But that is a big issue that we're dealing with right now, and we know that the project managers are on top of that switch gear, hopefully in delivery in April. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. Let's skip that one, please. I'm sorry, that's Beaufort High School. Just to update everybody on, that project is closed out, and everything is completed on Beaufort High School. So there we are with that. Let's talk about the rest of our medium, small projects. These are projects that typically include safety, security, technology, infrastructure, playgrounds, or athletic scopes. There are 33 medium and small projects underway using 84 individual project scope packages. And this is the breakdown. There are 2 of those in the planning phase, 13 in design phase. There are 1 in the bid phase, 29 under construction, 24 are in closeout, and 15 are completed for a total of 84. We give that our green light status tonight. We still are dealing with supply issues. The project managers are managing these issues very closely to keep these projects on schedule. So those are the remaining projects across the district. Let's talk about our project closeouts. As we, every month at the clock meetings, we review this form which shows the status of closeout of all of the projects. Most of those projects listed in yellow caution lights are ones that we're waiting on closeout documents. So the project managers are trying to close these out with the contractors with the final documentation. Once they have that, then the project will be closed out. The next page shows the remainder of those. Those are the ones that have been closed since the beginning of the referendum. Now let's give a financial update. As all of you are aware, we do have a financial subcommittee led by our CPA, who's in the room with us this evening. Ray, thank you for being here. Current status, all budgeted dollars for the projects equal the dollars approved by the referendum. The 8/31/22 appropriation amounts per the project did not change of the initial budget that was issued in 6/30/20. Individual budgets have been adjusted and supported by the referendum contingency and the bond premiums, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. The dollars spent and encumbered did not exceed the budgeted project total. The dollars spent per project did not exceed the estimated project percent complete. Material and construction costs continue to challenge cost control and schedule, but financially we're doing very well as they're trying to control the cost. Now let's look at the referendum spend to date. The original bond referendum was $344,610. And selling the bonds in this market the bonds received a bond premium amount of $31 million. So what does that mean? It means basically those who purchased the bonds paid additional funds to purchase those bonds, which yielded $31,100,000. So the new budget is $375,710. Paid to date through 8/31 is $313,994,208. Total remaining is $61,715,792. Contingency used in August was $22,287,172. Remaining contingency is $14,388,988, which we consider that green. Last quarter update, we were at 3262998 contingency, so as you can see, the bond referendum premiums definitely helped us. So it will help us complete the original referendum scope, but material cost increases continue to be an issue over the term, and the project managers will need to monitor that very carefully. So that's our financial summary. Now a couple of recommendations to the board this evening from the Citizen-Led Oversight Committee. There's been a lot of conversation recently in board meetings about safety and security. The bond referendum contains $32 million that has been funded and allocated to security upgrades across the district. This does not include any building additions taking place in the building improvements, such as secure vestibules. The board needs to determine how to communicate how this $32 million is being spent and highlight those improvements to our safety and security across the district. One other point that I'd like to bring to the clock this evening is the board policy not to respond to public comments. We suggest that you amend that board policy to respond to comments if the information is known. For example, concern over safety at schools, board response. $32 million has been allocated and it is being spent and is in the implementation phase for the bond referendum for safety and security. That is a statement this evening. So that's where we are. We appreciate the support from all the board members who attend our clock meetings. And with that, I will take any questions.
Okay. Mr. Earl Campbell?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Campbell.
But I agree with you. I think the board need to amend that policy because the gentleman said tonight that forensic audit. We already had a forensic audit and they didn't find anything wrong, so we should let the public know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Thank you for your comment. Any follow-up questions?
Anyone down there? Down there? Ms. Fidrick? No?
No, just,
okay. Yeah.
Mr. Barber, thank you, as always, for everything that you and the clock do. And I greatly appreciate your expertise in many areas, Mr. Warco's expertise in his area, but I greatly appreciate you now being as concerned about how the word is getting out to the community. That is crucial because for 4 years, you all have been meeting and going over the financials, going over the building process, everything to determine that everything is on the way it should be. And we need to be able to let the community know that we have invested a significant amount of money to safety and security, a significant amount of money for upgrades. And so your comments about that are greatly appreciated. So thank you for everything.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Any follow-up questions? Thank you. And
Mr. Smith.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Smith. Thank you.
No problem. I just want to thank you too as well. I've been to some of your meetings, and to just follow up with what Mrs. Fridges wanted to say, I just wanted to take upon the second to see and say thank you for updating the public and allowing your voice to be known. That, but we do, we all have to be mindful that there are policies and procedures around safety and security. Mm-hmm. So therefore, we have to be very intentional, very calculated on how we make statements about that. But we thank you for updating the community and keeping them actively engaged in knowing how we're spending the funds in terms of safety and security. We thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and to you, thank you for attending our meetings. We really appreciate it when board members attend our monthly meetings. It shows your support, and we appreciate that immensely, so thank you. Any more questions? Thank you, and we'll see you for the next quarterly update.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The clock group is a tremendous asset to our board. I thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is the chairman's report. And tonight, in front of you at your seats was a manila envelope which contains the superintendent's evaluation form. The form is being given out tonight. Dr. Wisniewski will make sure you get yours. The supporting information booklet that Dr. Rodriguez prepares to evaluation forms will be collated. They're numerical, so it's a numerical collation of the reports, and a draft form will be developed, or a draft. And then we will have a special called board meeting on Wednesday, the 26th, where we will meet as a board to review what the final outcome was and to present our findings with Dr. Rodriguez. That meeting will be at 5 o'clock. I will put all of this in a email to everyone tomorrow so that you have the information and you can refer to it. As you know, we are contractually required to complete Dr. Rodriguez's evaluation during the month of October. So that is what brings us to next Wednesday to do the evaluation based on his availability. And as a result of that, the academic committee meeting, which was scheduled for 5 o'clock on the 26th, is being postponed till a later date. And I will get that information out as well. So that's all I have to report. Okay. So now we move on to committee reports. First committee report, Finance. Colonel Geyer.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. The Finance Committee met on October 13th in a hybrid meeting. And we had a number of topics, and the topics I'm going to go over one by one. First item that we looked at is the monthly $100,000 report, where we see every item over $1,000 that is expended during that reported period as for the month of August. Dr. Graz made a motion to accept the consolidated report and place it on October 18th consent agenda, which is today, and it is on the consent agenda. The motion was seconded by Mr. Campbell, and the motion passed unanimously. Secondly, Ms. Tanya Crosby presented the monthly transparency report. That's every dime that's spent in the month of August, 84 pages. We went through 84 pages. We found one item that we just wanted some more information on, and Ms. Crosby gave it to us, and it was sufficient. Next item is the board's monthly budget report for October. Dr. Graz made the motion that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the board monthly budget report and place it on the consent agenda. That motion passed unanimously 4-0. Next item was the ESSER update, and that is the federal COVID relief funds. Ms. Crosby and Ms. Denise Mattson presented two versions of the ESSER update, the old version and the new version. The new version is absolutely superb, and I'm going to ask Ms. Crosby and Ms. Mattson to come up and tell us about it.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity. After some conversation, we've been talking about the ESSER report this is the elementary, secondary schools emergency relief funds. These are COVID funds. We began getting the majority of them primarily 18 months ago. And so the spending that you'll see this evening represent that 18-month period of time. And so as to jump a little ahead of what others in our community, our school communities were doing, we felt it was necessary to bring forward a monthly update to the board and the community of what the spending is, how our progress is going, and what categories of spending we are focusing our dollars on. And so the last few meetings, there have been some concerns about the projections and how how will we spend it all, that sort of thing, to make sure that we're not leaving any on the table when those expiration dates come in the next couple of years. So the final expiration will be September of 2024. So Ms. Mattson and I here, the Director of Special Revenue, came up with the idea of the dashboard that kind of depicts visually what the progress is, and hopefully will help to make some sense of all the numbers and all the reports and multiple pages of information that we've been giving you. So it was very well received by the committee, and I just wanted to touch on a few highlights of that report this evening. So again, kind of three main ideas or goals of this projection or this dashboard is to provide a visual depiction. So it's a very quick snapshot of what things look like. Two, it combines all of the activities into groups, and so they're easy to understand. They don't have long descriptions or lots of numbers. And also a demonstration of how we are tracking the funds and that what progress we're making to expending those by the September of 2024 deadline. So the top left-hand corner is a chart that shows 46%. This represents $36 million of the $80 million of spending of the allocations to Beaufort County schools. This 46% or $36 million is essentially spent in the last 18 months. And as we break down three of the major categories, ESSER 1, 2, and 3, you'll see in red in the bar chart going horizontally, the top one is ESSER 1, and we've spent 100% of those funds. Those were due to expire this on September 30th, just a few weeks ago. ESSER 2 is around $21 million. We have spent 50%. Those were allocated almost exactly 12 months ago, and we're 50% through this, that grant. After December of this year, we will have spent 76% of it when we pay out the $2,000 recruiting and retention bonus for all full-time employees that was unanimously voted on by the board. And finally, the ESSER 3 funds, which were around $51 million, we are at 38% of the spending, and we're 1/3 or 33% through the the period of the grant. So we are making progress, and we do expect to be we are on track of what our projections show. Bottom left quadrant just gives the blue line is our projected spending, and it goes up when we have large expenditures such as the retention bonus or major construction projects in the summer. And then the green line projects the remaining balance of the cash flow and the budget as we near the end of the grant on the far right-hand side in 2024. So we do have a plan for those dollars, the commitments in different categories, and those categories are representative on the far bottom right side with remaining planned expenditures there. So we do, Ms. Mattson meets regularly, quarterly with the contact people that for every one of the 200 activities that are within this grant to make sure that the supply chain delays aren't affecting them so drastically that they won't be able to spend the dollars. They're making sure that those are pushed along and that we are monitoring and tracking the progress of every expenditure in compliance with the activities that were approved in the grant by the State Department of Ed. So with that, that concludes my update on that information.
Are there any questions, board member?
Mel Campbell?
Question, comment. I was one of the ones who asked about the projection of the spending, of course, and I'm still concerned. I've been just showing me that you're going to spend the money is one thing, but I'm concerned with the intent of the funding and the addressing of what that intent was. Particularly during the pandemic, these funds were issued by federal government to address what obviously was going to be potentially learning loss, which meant, and I've looked at your breakdown, and I've looked at the expenditures, and some of them, does address learning loss, but I saw a lot of duplication in the way the money is spent. And when I say learning loss, I mean things addressing the academics particularly. There's about $13 million, I think you're addressing that. I don't know where the lines are now. I'm looking now and it's hard to find the lines, but I know one category, $5 million for after-school learning program, and then another, the same kind of topic again later on. Address the same issue. Provide lower teacher-to-student ratio to address learning loss by hiring 10 teachers. I don't know if that was done or not done. I don't recall us, addressing that, whether those 10 teachers were hired and whether they did cut the class size. I know I addressed class sizes last time in terms of the categories. So I am concerned with, whether you're going to spend the money towards the purpose or whether you're going to spend the money. I know we can spend the money. I can spend that money, and myself. But how we spending it and what we're spending it on. I like to see a breakdown, for example, of some of these things, particularly the after-school summer program addressing the particulars of learning loss.
If I may respond, in the dashboard we do provide some major categories, and one of them is learning loss. It provides information. Budget is $26.9 million in that one particular category. But if I'm looking at all of the categories, all of them are for the benefit of students, for sure. Learning loss is particularly after-school programs, tutoring, and other supports in the classroom. But the details in the more detailed report that you've been seeing each month do provide the activities by specific category, and we can certainly have other more conversations about those particular categories, and we'll be happy to share those details.
I'd like to make a comment too. Last week I attended 2 of the after-school programs, one at Mount Carmel Baptist Church, the other one at St. Paul's Baptist Church, where they had proper teachers, they had proper accountability, teaching proper subjects, and it was really well done. Now, that's just a small portion. There's other after-school projects throughout the district. So it's happening. And I'm sure that Dr. Stratus and the superintendent can give us more specifics on the rest of the programs.
Programs and expenditures is what
Yes.
I'd be interested in.
Mr. Smith?
Go ahead.
I do echo and do understand what Mr. Campbell is saying in terms of that breakdown, and as well as, and also there was also some conversation in terms of where the kids would go, and also exposure and some other things that that we're just trying to get a clear understanding of, seeing that those things are done, because when the project was bought and we bought into it, there was a certain there was a certain blueprint that was what was told to us, and there's nothing wrong with just making sure and watching that and being able to be transparent with the public and saying that the blueprint that was proposed to us when it was proposed is exactly what is going on, and here's the truth, and there's no questions, or there's nothing that that is questionable about it, because it's going on, and then we can see we can actually see the growth, and and in terms of even the learning loss, and today with the state report card coming out, it's good when we can show that money that has been allocated, that how it is being utilized, but also when we can show the fruits of our labor in these programs. That speaks volume, not just talking about learning loss, but also showing it and being able to understand and digesting that what we're doing is working, and in terms of spending the finances, because there's a lot of people who are talking about the finances, but they want to know what is exactly going on with the finances and how we're spending them. And I understand that you're giving them, but learning loss can be abroad. That can be a broad title. So deeping into it is something that people are asking, and I think that we have no problem showing them because we're doing it. So if that's what we're doing, then it's no problem. So I just want to put that out there as well.
Madam Vice Chair, I'd like to continue with my report.
Please.
Mr. Campbell, did you have something?
Well, I just want to make sure that you understand. I think Mr. Smith did point out the end goal of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking after the ESSER funds have dried up, can we assess properly future needs and the budgetary concerns then? Will it have effectively addressed the situation or not? And how much more money will we need to put in from our general fund to sustain what was started? And, the effectiveness of that have to be, calculable. And that's what I'm concerned about.
Thank you. And that was a topic that we discussed about measurable outcomes. And we're going to work that, I'm sure. The next item we talked about was ESSER budget transfers. We transfer federal funds into our local and back and forth, and we have to make sure that we keep very strict control of that. And so we were briefed on that in that program. Next item was we got a summary of employee benefits compensation increases that happened in the 2020-2023 budget year. And I'd like Ms. Crosby to brief that to the full board.
Sure. Yes, sir. So we provided a 4-year summary in response to questions regarding salary increases and benefit increases for staff in the school district. So we went back 4 years because there were some significant changes made in the 2020 school year or 2019-2020 school year. We had, in addition to the annual step increases, and there was a 4% cost of living increase for certified staff. That year there was a 10% salary increase for bus drivers. And that year we had, there was an initiative put in place by the interim superintendent at the time, Dr. Berg, to make increases in athletic stipends. We were woefully low in the terms in comparison to other districts throughout the state in payment for coaches. And so there was an initiative that was started as a phased in beginning in 2020 for raising athletic stipends. 2021 was the COVID year, so there was a continuing resolution, so the budget did not change from the prior year, so there was no activity. But the next year, in 21-22 school year, there were some significant increases for the benefit of all employees. For one, we went back and provided the step increase and retroactive 3% cost of living increases for all employees. Also, there was the regular steps. So there were 2 steps given that year for certified employees, in addition to $1,000 to the base teacher salary. There was 2 step increases for both classified, administrative, and professional employees as well. And then the normal a 2% cost of living increase. That year, we also provided a $1,000 pandemic bonus for all employees, free mental health supports with ESSER funds and child care, and then a dual modality bonus for teachers that were teaching both virtually and in person that year as well. And we implemented Phase 2 and part of Phase 3 of the athletic stipend initiative as well. And then finally, in 2023, this year was a really historical year in terms of teacher pay increases. In the 21 years I've been in the school district, I've never seen increases of this magnitude. And it really was set, the standard was set by the governor, who began talks about $4,000 increases for teacher salaries. And then the board really supported that larger increase as opposed to the state going with a $2,000 increase. We stayed at $4,000 and then added in $2,500 of the locality supplement into the base, which then brought the teacher salaries to the starting teacher salaries from Beaufort to the highest ranked pay in terms of starting teacher salary in the state of South Carolina for public school districts. So that was a really amazing budget year, and we were fortunate to have the funding to be able to manage that.
Tanya, where were we prior to that?
We were at 52nd before we started this initiative, and just less than a year ago. We did move to in the 40th percentile, 40th it ranked by giving the 3% cost of living retroactive to employees last year. But with this budget, we were able to be number one. So, and finally, then recently, the ESSER $2,000 recruiting and retention bonuses that we provided, those will be delivered and provided in December of this year for all full-time employees employed as of November. And we're doing a compensation study for classified, administrative, and professional employees that will be phased in January. In addition to that, we continued mental health and child care supports, in addition to expanding our sick leave payouts and payment of lapsed sick days for all district staff who are eligible for those payouts through retirement or other means. So all in all, the totals that we provided, some of these are state mandated, fully or partially, but we generally have done way more than the state in terms of compensation and benefits. And the total of these that we came up with were $62 million.
Any questions comments from the board?
Don't see any. Oh, Dr. Glatz? I
I'll
just
just-
turned my head that way.
I'll just say, I know the committee thought this, and I'm one of the committee members, but this is awesome because, as a board, we've done these steps and seen these steps happen, but to see it comprehensive like this in one sheet is great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For the general public, we are in a competitive market for teachers.
Yeah.
We have to have competitive salaries. And I believe the committee is unanimous in recommending that we continue to be competitive. This is not just a one-time shot, because we need the best and brightest teachers for our children.
I want to add to that. I'm definitely in support of the continuing of it, but as I'm out in the community, I just wanted to, as I'm getting the FYI reminder, I just want to give the FYI, I want to pass the word along, in giving out these and becoming the number one in the state. We also have to make sure that our numbers and our schools and report cards are going to reflect that as well, that we are pushing our best and brightest teachers out there to schools in different areas that need them, so that we are making sure that we are making the necessary improvements and adjustment along the way, so that we are not only we just changed a number, but we've actually not only have we just put our money where our mouth is, but we've put an action behind a plan, and it's to be successful. So therefore, when we go back and we give you more money than the taxpayers aren't, they're happy to say, look, if this is going to help our economy and our community, by doing that, then continue to give them more, because that's going to make our community safer, it's going to make our community smarter, and we're going to continue to grow in the right direction. So all this plays a big part, just beyond what we can see, and just giving out money. It's about the change of where we're going at as a county. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, we have one more report, and that's the future topics at our next Finance Committee meeting. We'll look at the September $1,000 September transparency report, monthly budget report. As always, we will receive another update of the dashboard for the ESSER funding. We will have an OE18 monitoring report on the school food and nutrition services. We have a new contractor. We want to make sure that the contract is being executed properly and the finances are appropriate. We also ask for a report of total teacher salaries by school. We've gotten the class sizes, and I said when we got the class sizes at our last meeting, that just starts the analysis of how we're using our funds in our schools. And so next month at the Finance Committee, we will have that report, and we will be forwarding it to the board at the following full board meeting. We also asked for an organization chart of the Finance Department. We've had an organization chart from ISD, and now we want to have the same from the Finance Department so we can understand the personnel functions and positions in the Finance Department. Madam Chair, that concludes the finance report.
Thank you. Any comments or questions at this time? Okay, then we will move on to Ms. Boatwright and the Operations Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chairman. Yes, so we had a Operations Committee meeting last week, and I think, Robin, is it possible to get the maintenance? It's not in board docs. It is in the Operations Committee board docs. So we had two big agenda items. One is our monthly construction update with Rob Corbin and Robert Otting. And if it's okay with the board, I think Ted Barber covered the key points. The only thing I wanted to add personally was that sometime in November, we are hopefully going to have some sort of a topping out ceremony for Robert Smalls. Details to come shortly. I think we're all excited about that. And I think that if the board has any questions in particular, both Rob Corbin and Robert Otting are here to answer them. The other thing that we really spent a lot of time on is the biannual maintenance and custodial reports. And for the board, the public's education, twice a year, the board reviews surveys that are submitted by school principals in terms that assesses sort of the quality, cleanliness, responsiveness, courtesy of the two contracted groups that we have. We have ABM for maintenance and HES for custodial. So those are contracted. They are not Beaufort County employees, or Beaufort County school employees. So what I will say, the tone of the conversation is that there are concerns. The custodial had been having some concerns coming out of the summer, largely attributable to staffing shortages, which, you know, I think we could probably just hang a sign out here because that is just plaguing the district throughout. We did meet with them. They have managed to hire, I think they said they were at 95% now, fully staffed. It's an ongoing process. It's a high turnover business, but they are making a lot of efforts in the right direction. Maintenance has had some slippage in the satisfaction survey. But we had a lot, we've got new management there. It's the same company. There is new management. They had some really great ideas. They presented some really in-depth data. So you can see there the blue line on the far side of each category is sort of where they're at now. And they answered, in my opinion, the board's questions thoroughly and acknowledged that it is a work in progress. I think one thing that is really important to understand is that, again, it's a staffing shortage. They are on a contract with us. We gave them some money from our COVID funds to hire 2 additional maintenance for some of the tasks that were asked of maintenance during COVID with PPE and whatnot, and they weren't able to fill them. So that money has not been spent. It has not been taken. It's in holding. But I think that both these groups are taking the opportunity to look at what staffing they have, things they can do, ways they can continue to provide services to the school. So I think what we left, and I would be happy to hear from the committee members, my takeaway was that while we do have concerns, I felt that they were addressing the concerns if to the best of their ability. I think that it'll be interesting to see in 6 months where we're at, and that's kind of the next time we'll have a chance to take a look at that. So that was sort of the tenor of the maintenance and custodial report. At this point, if the board has any questions.
Questions? Mr. Smith?
Yes, I do. I do have some, just to add to your report as well. In terms of the, there were a couple other things that were brought out as well that I stated that it was a concern in terms of the custodial staff doing some of the construction work in terms of funding, where we're pulling funding from, and how we're utilizing, or we're asking different groups of people to utilize different people in terms of where the funding was coming from. That was a great concern of mine, is because if we're having certain people do things out of bond referendum money, then those people need to be operating within that realm, and people who are doing stuff towards salary staff or within ABM, then they should be doing stuff towards the building, because they were being pulled away from the building work to clean up some of the contract stuff. And to me, that was definitely a issue that I think that is still a concern of mine, and I do that does not sit well with me. And at some point in time, we do have to address that, and as well as the work being unsatisfactory. I think 6 months is a little too far off, because you could have a lot of stuff happening within that 6 months, and a large turnover says a lot of different things. So I think that we should be within 6 months. Now I think 6 months is a little bit much. That's a kind of a long time. Thank you.
So I picked up on 3 things there, Mr. Smith, and I'll address a little bit of that and then turn it over to Mr. Otting, who's already come up to the podium. I do think, and I don't know, Robin, if you can pull up that PDF that HES provided. They did do a survey for their employees with an 83% response rate. And generally speaking, they got high marks for, I don't have it right in front of me. Do you have it, Robin? Yeah, it's my bad. I should have caught that it was not in the board docs, but as you understand, it's been kind of a different, there we go. Overall, that they felt that they were comfortable going to the supervisor with problems, comfortable with felt like part of the overall school family, that they did not need additional training to do the job effectively. So those, I think, all go to the issues you're raising over turnover. The 2 areas that were a little bit lower, tools and supplies and compensation, I think goes to finance and the contract constraints. Additionally, if you look down, scroll down a little bit, Robin, the average employee turnover rate 75% and 375% in maintenance, and the average, I thought this was great that they provide this information. Cleaning industry at about 200%. Our turnover rate is below that. It is still high at 60%, and they said basically we're competing with private industry, and they can make a lot more money doing the same kind of work in private industry. A lot of these custodial workers do it for love of the job and love of the kids and desire to do it. So that's one thing I want to talk about with turnover. And then I think Mr. Otting is going to address the questions you had regarding the ABM staff and construction.
Yes, ma'am. And Ms. Smith, I would just like to say that was a very good point that we took to heart. We're making sure our project managers review the projects and have conversations with, and that also our custodial managers and maintenance managers know that if any of those situations do arise, they need to alert our project managers. So we're going to make sure that those conversations occur so that doesn't happen, so that construction pays for any construction work they have, and we aren't pulling in and taking away from maintenance or custodial. So I'd say thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we're going to address that. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. And just to piggyback and to address some of the things that you said, in terms of turnover, when you cook, you turn over eggs, you turn over different things, but as you turn it over, you assess what's going on. So at the end of the day, if we're competing, and we just stood up here and said that we're competing to up the pay, then that's another reason why I've advocated so much to bring custodians back in house, because a lot of what that survey doesn't tell you is that during the whole time when we had the whole COVID situation, that when we gave out bonuses to our employees, that none of those, because they were contract workers, none of those employees got bonuses. They were very upset. That survey didn't tell you that. A lot of those custodians are my constituents. They've seen me and they've told me that survey didn't tell you that. And with all due respect, we're not sure who done that survey. A survey gives you a host of information. You can line a survey up, in all due respect, to tell you what you want to know specifically. So that survey, I respect the survey, and I'm thankful for the survey. But when I have people coming to me and telling me different things, then and the survey backs it up when they come up and they say that they were down when they were losing people, then does that mean that the survey that the community and the Pulse is giving me is pretty accurate? So it's two types of surveys. So that's one survey that we're thankful for. But I'm also thankful for that that my constituents trust me enough, or they think of me enough to come and tell me how they really feel and what their concerns are. So that paper survey tells one thing, but that's not some of the survey that I'm getting when I'm seeing my constituents in the community. And that's something that is my job to bring forth, and I intend to do that. So, I thank you for your input in terms of that survey, and I'm thankful, but that's just those are some more information that I want to give out that stands out to me when I look at the survey, and that's one thing on the survey that tells me that the pulse of the community is accurate. So just want to be, cognizant of that as well. Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Okay, proceed.
Okay, so the other thing is we do have a motion coming out of committee that was made by Ms. Fidrich, seconded by Mr. Campbell, and I would like to amend it, because I just want to do that right off bat. Do you have the motion ready to go, Robin? The motion was basically that we wanted to have the options for Kate programming presented. What I would like to amend it to is have it presented, because it's really not in a board business action stage at this point. It is in a discussion and a batting about and a listing of what people are thinking about in terms of finishing the current referendum and planning for the next one for Kate programs. So I would like to amend our motion to just add on to the end of that, do you see it, Robin? Sorry, sentence, to bring Kate options to the operations committee for review. And I would like to ask the board to make that motion so that we can begin that work.
I second that amendment.
Do we see the amendment, please? Okay.
It's in there, the construction update.
I
Yeah.
have to.
Transferred around down here.
Yes.
And I guess while we're waiting, I will say that would include, we have another meeting coming up, our usual meeting. We try to meet before the clock committee to hear our construction update. We also have a meeting tentatively scheduled for November 9th to hear the HR annual report that then will be brought to the full board. So we should have 2 November meetings, which is right about our average.
Can you just make the motion and I'll type it from?
I move that the Board of Education direct the superintendent to present ideas for Kate programs to the operations committee. That's all of them.
I move that the Board of Education direct the superintendent to present Kate options to.
The operations committee.
Ms. Fidrich, second the motion.
Any discussion?
Oh, I was also, just for the public's education, Kate is career and technical education, so that's programs like we have at ACE, we have cosmetology, we have auto shop. There's a lot of options, and there's some new stuff on the horizon, so that's why we want to kind of hear about it.
I have a question. In terms of this motion, is there a time frame that we're looking at, like Kate programs in the next 5 years, the next?
I think as it relates to referendum planning, past, present, and future.
Okay, so it's related, okay.
We're doing some design work now for May River, and there's some other projects on the horizon, and how they all fit together was kind of what we wanted to start hearing about. I don't think it's going to be a one-and-done conversation. I just think it's an important one we need to start having.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I would comment that, our concern was the May River initiative with Kate, and where we stand with it, and why we need to go in any direction with the budgeting school enrollment population, and with technology going to be a big discussion in the next referendum. Why do we need to duplicate or start something at May River that will be needed to be duplicated or changed later on. So it appears that the May River situation is not resolved in terms of what we're going to be doing there right now. So our concern with, do we do anything there, or do we continue on the course that was prescribed, or do we change the prescription? That's our concern, and it probably will include other discussions, but we got a bunch of other stuff in place. But the question is the May River end piece now. Do we continue on with what's not really planned, because we don't have anything definitive that's going to happen there at May River?
Any other comments, questions? Okay.
Call for the question.
Call for the vote. The motion on the floor is, I move that the Board of Education direct the superintendent to present CATE options to the Operations Committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wisniewski, aye.
Okay. 10-0.
Okay, so don't change the channel, because I'm just going to go right into technology. So we had a technology committee meeting yesterday where we finally got the results of the technology assessment. We spent a fair amount of time hearing from Plant Moran, the company that's done an extensive evaluation of our facilities and our stakeholders and our staff. They had given us overall a very good report card and said point blank that they do this with a lot of districts throughout the state and throughout the country, and that we were ahead of other districts. So that was really good news. I think some of the money that we did spend in the current referendum funded towards technology is showing up in this assessment. They did identify some issues that we can work on. And so what I suggested to the committee was that we take these as future topics. So some of the suggestions, and so I'm not going to make a report on the full technology because Plant Moran was unavailable, but we are going to bring that to you guys in the next meeting or two. We'll bring the full presentation from Plant Moran. Some of the things that came out of it is, should technology be its own department, which is already brought up in the efficiency study? How do we staff it? How are we funding it? There were a lot of big bites coming out of that. So the technology committee is going to be looking at that on a month-by-month, someone used the term, eat the elephant one bite at a time approach to this technology assessment. And we will bring the full assessment presentation to the board when Plant Moran's available.
Excellent. Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah, we also, just as the word, heard about cybersecurity, and Mr. Shohan presented some of the options for cybersecurity at other schools, and it's something that is definitely an emphasis of the technology committee. So with that, our next meeting we haven't scheduled yet. It'll be within a month. When we get a date together, we'll post that publicly.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on our agenda, the superintendent's report. Student achievement. Dr.
Thank you.
Rodriguez.
First item on the superintendent's report this evening is on the extended learning sites. Dr. Stratos.
Good evening, Madam Vice Chair, Mrs. Robine. Tonight's presentation is an update of Beaufort County School District's extended learning programs by our Director of Community Engagement and After School Programs, Ganelle Danzler, and Dr. Nakia Campbell is also online, our Instructional Service Officer. I'd like to build on a commentary already discussed this evening regarding our extended learning programs and paint the picture for us to recognize that our program started in January 23rd of this past year. That we're discussing the programs operating with our partnership with communities. Mrs. Danzler is going to go into greater detail for the number of programs as well as the number of students being serviced at this time. Our after-school programs are servicing 4 days a week, and we are partnered also with the Boys and Girls Club on Saturday. You'll see in the data points being presented to you, information will be different in both those areas, subject to you have 4 days a week versus 1 day a week. With that, Mrs. Danzler, I'd like to bring you forward to start the presentation, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've been at this now for about 10 months, and I'm excited about the future of our community engagement initiative. I feel that we are developing authentic partnerships, nurturing relationships, building trust, and leading to transformative student outcomes. The next slide outlines the pilot that began on St. Helena and Ladies Island on January 24th through May 19th. With that pilot, we had 6 community partners that started a program on January 24th. Inadvertently left off the Hilton Head Boys and Girls Club. It started in November prior to me coming on board, but they had approximately 50 students enrolled in their Saturday program, which brought our total students that participated with the pilot on St. Helena and Ladies Island, as well as the Hilton Head Boys and Girls Club, to 173 students, 123 from St. Helena and Ladies Island, and 50 of those students at the Hilton Head Boys and Girls Club. On the next slide, our summer enrichment program, we had 8 sites or 8 partners who participated in the summer enrichment program. One of the sites on St. Helena did not participate, but we added 3 additional sites for the summer enrichment program, which was Mount Carmel Baptist Church, which target the Well Branch cluster, St. Paul Baptist Church, which targets the Broad River Elementary, Robert Smalls International, and Battery Creek High School. And then we brought on the Bluffton Soup Kitchen. The Bluffton Soup Kitchen, they target the schools, Beaufort Elementary, Bluffton Elementary, Bluffton Middle, Bluffton High, Okeechobee Elementary, Red Cedar, and MC Riley. We also will be partnering with the St. Andrews by the Sea on Hilton Head. They decided that they would start their program in January, which would bring our total partners to 11 sites. During the...
Excuse me just a minute. Robin, can you go? Are you controlling the... Oh, because we're one slide behind.
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go. So during the summer, the previous slide, during the summer, we had a total of 162 students enrolled in the summer enrichment program, with 8 partners operating during the month of June and July. So starting on September 26th, we have a total of 11 partners. And as I stated earlier, the St. Andrews by the Sea on Hilton Head, they decided to start in January. The Boys and Girls Club on Hilton Head will start their program this coming Saturday on October 22nd. So excluding the Hilton Head Boys and Girls Club in St. Andrews, since they haven't started already, we have a total of 207 students. And that's where we were when I submitted the PowerPoint presentation, but we have since added additional students. So with the students that the Hilton Head Boys and Girls Clubs have enrolled already, that brings us to about 282 students that's enrolled in the after-school program on Hilton Head and St. Helena, Ladies Island, Well Branch Cluster, as well as the Mink Point area, and Bluffton Community Soup Kitchen. So I wanted to create some data points, or pull some data points from our MAP testing. And I looked at the overall percentage gain of the students that participated in the pilot. And the reason I used the pilot is because the pilot was more consistent. During the summer, some of the students had to go to the summer reading at their schools. Some of them went on vacation, so I figured that the pilot that started on St. Helena and Ladies Island would be more consistent as far as presenting data. So as you can see on the slide, which highlights the 3rd and 4th grade students, their percentile gain in math. They took the winter map in January prior to starting the after-school program. Then they took it again in April, which gave them about 3 months of actively being a part of the after-school program. So for the math, they had a 0.2% gain during that time. For their winter reading map scores compared to their
Mrs.
spring map
Danzler?
reading scores, they had an 8%.
Mrs.
gain.
Danzler,
And
is it possible for you to speak up just a bit louder or get closer to the mic? The distance, thank you, appreciate it, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So with the third grade and fourth grade percentile gain, you can see there we had some gains with the reading and MAP scores compared to what they did on winter MAP as well as the spring MAP. The fifth and sixth grade students, we had a 7% gain within that 3.3 month period, and then we had a 3% gain within the 3-month period for the reading MAP. I felt it was necessary to highlight these data points because the gains were obtained in such a short period of time. The overall gain for all of the students from 3rd through 9th grade that attended the after-school program on St. Helena and Ladies Island, there's a 2% gain overall in the 3-month period for the winter MAP compared to spring MAP, and then a 3% gain for the reading MAP scores. So just to leave you with a quote, there is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. So I just want to add that I'm just really excited about where we're headed. I think that you will definitely see returns on your investment because I think that we're heading in a good place. We also will start using the software, MyPath, which will be exclusively used for the students in the after-school program, which will give us an opportunity to be able to highlight or use some baseline data so that we can be able to really monitor the students' progress as they use the software in the after-school program. That concludes my presentation.
Mr., did you want to add something?
Just to build on that, Madam Vice Chair, that with the data being embargoed, Mrs. Danzo is now working on the data points in comparison to SC Ready and other state standardized testing in order to have those reporting mechanisms for us as well, ma'am.
Great, okay. Mr. Earl Campbell?
Yes, my question is, can we make sure we get more students? I mean, we have a total of, what, 207 students?
We have 207 on the 4 days a week and 75 on Saturdays already registered, sir.
Well,
yes.
Why that number so low? Is the students don't want to come, or the parents? Because I know we have a lot more students need help than what we have on this paper.
Mrs. Danzy, may you speak to the initiative you were sharing in my office?
Sure. Based on the MOA and the agreement between the partners, we had capped the number of students that would attend each program to 25. If we want to increase that number, then we would have to revisit our MOA and discuss what it would cost to hire more teachers and include more students in the after-school programs.
We're working at this time at a ratio about 10-to-1, sir. That was the agreement with the educators who we're working with, who've come back in from retirement. But we had that conversation early on, so where you're driving the bus, sir, on how to extend more.
Okay. Well, I look at the number of sites in some of the churches. We have some over 200 and some churches in this county. This I do not understand. Parents know that their student needs help, but yet they don't try to give them the help. And we are not going to see any change in the student's achievement gap unless parents get more involved. We can spend all the money we want, but it starts at home. Thank you.
Ms. Boatwright?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. What are the age ranges of the students that are being served? Is it 3rd through 9th grade? I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, they're 3rd through 9th grade.
So no one over 9th grade and no one under 3rd grade?
Kindergarten, the program is offered to students in kindergarten, pre-K through 12th grade.
Okay.
But the bulk of the students, that's who's attending the program. We really don't have a whole lot of high school students that attend, but the majority of the kids are what you see in the presentation, the 3rd through 9th graders.
And how much have we spent so far on the community engagement programs? Do we have a figure?
That I don't have with me on the financial perspective. We can report that. I happen to have someone nearby me at this time who has
Flipping through a
excellent
binder?
records, ma'am.
Okay. And then I am a data person. I like the data that's, we're starting to track, because to me, and I share Mr. Campbell's concern. So one other question I have, as far as, I don't like to see all the initiatives clumped into one population. It's a big county. We've got a lot of churches. I'm glad to hear that St. Andrew's Church is going to be coming on board. I know that there are a lot of churches both north and south of the Broad that would like to help. Sometimes they're not even looking for financial support. They're just looking for some curriculum, some leadership, some partnering. Let's share the data. Let's share the software. So I hope that we continue to push into these other areas. If someone is a church now out in Whale Branch or on Hilton Head, and they would like to participate, they've got a group of students that they're working with, is there an application process?
We've actually worked directly with Ms. Danzler and myself, that we sit and have a conversation to see if they're a 501(c), find out how they're operating, also to make sure that we're following district guidelines with regard to other policies that we have in place. So we start with an initial meeting. We have had an open call. That's actually how this all initiated earlier this year. I have Dr. Campbell online right now, because she started the initial, if I want to say, the marketing of of this initiative last December. So that's how we started with the pilot that Ganell has been working with, ma'am. Mrs. Campbell, can you build on to how you were able to reach out to some of the churches from the very beginning, also with the work of our board members? She may be frozen.
If she does, or she looks very serious. Well, I think I'm satisfied with the process up to this point. What is it now? If we're talking about this, and there are churches that want to get involved,
They can reach out to myself directly. We do set up a meeting.
Okay, so the first step is a meeting with you.
Yes, ma'am.
She's unfrozen now.
Dr. Wisniewski?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I recognize that we're only talking to the community engagement initiative, and that pocket of students might seem small. So my question is, in regard to all of the district-wide after-school tutoring programs that we have going on, because I'm familiar with two others, and that's at McCracken Middle School and also at Bluffton Elementary. They're offering 3 and 4 days a week, I believe, at those sites. So how many students are we capturing with this initiative and with our other after-school initiatives district-wide? Because 200 seems small, although I think it's amazing, because I think that community partnership is the backbone and what we always preach about, getting people engaged, getting our community engaged in the conversations. I'm just looking to get an overall number of how many children are in our after-school totality.
Dr. Wisniewski, we could put that information together. If it becomes an agenda item, we could have that information put together. Yes, ma'am. And just to build on Mrs. Boatwright, the breakdown of the data is collective, so I'll have to get that financial information to you at a follow-up time.
Do you mind if I ask a follow-up? I had one other data-related question, and I'm glad that Dr. Wisniewski pointed out that we have other after-school programs. I think it's really important when we start stepping away from the ESSER funding, that we're looking at maximizing our dollars. I am a huge proponent of this community engagement. My frustration comes from, I want to see my community, Mr. Campbell's community, Dr. Wisniewski, I want to see all the communities engaged. So that's something I'm pushing on. But as far as comparing this data, the 8% gain in 3 months, the 0.2% or gain in 2 months, I think we need to look at how does that compare to the population as a whole of the school district, and how does that compare to other tutoring programs, so that we know the value of these programs. I think the unmeasurable aspect is, and I think this is again why I'm really pushing for it to spread into further parts of the county, is the community engagement. The people that go to those churches and go to the Bluffton Soup Kitchen or Bluffton Self-Help, and they see the kids there and they see the work that's being done, it's hard to measure that impact. So again, I don't think it's strictly a question of lining up bar graphs and seeing which one's taller, but I do think that at some point we're going to have to face which programs we can continue to fund post-ESSER and which ones we can't. So capturing this data and comparing it, I think, is really important. And I guess that wasn't really a question, was it? It was in my own mind.
Yeah, I agree with lots of those points. But, data is, in this case, the data is specific to this population. and we have to cross-reference what we probably don't have, except results. What has this population done in the past? And, you know, it wouldn't be fair to compare different populations after-school programs, but the goals that are set in place for those after-school programs will be what you're looking at. I am concerned with our marketing of the after-school program, how we design it, how we push it, and how we get parents involved. And the one thing that will work, and I'm an inside-out person in terms of that, is student-driven initiatives that allow the students to sell the programs. And that would mean some highlights of their effectiveness through in-school initiatives instead of after-school initiatives. You know, some of the things they bring from those after-school programs into the school will sell it to other students. Typical example, why do you get a chance to wear that T-shirt today? Because I'm in the after-school program at so-and-so. Gee, I want to be there. You know, things like that works. And the kids, you know, they tell a story of what they're doing. And other kids who need the help will find the help. We're not going to be able to do a parenting university officially. I mean, we can have those courses and those overtures, but parents are 50 years old and set many times and doing the best they can with what they have. So us trying to rewrite those books, it's not exactly where we need to be going.
Mr. Smith?
Before I get started, Mrs. Dr. Scrattle, excuse me, please blame it on my heart, not my brain right now. You were asking Dr. Campbell to answer a question that someone brought. Did you remember? Would you do that? Because I'm going to bring my point right behind that.
The question I had asked Dr. Campbell to bring forward was how we initiated the marketing program, the marketing of this initiative. But I believe, yep, Doc's back.
So how the marketing was done is there was an initial interest survey that was sent out to the schools, and the schools filtered that survey onto the parents. They send it out to the parents. And from that survey, that's how parents gain interest into the program. They initially did a interest survey, completed, the link was sent, and they completed the survey and expressed their interest in their children attending the after-school program. This time around, we didn't do an interest survey. We actually sent out a registration link to the schools, and all of the principals filtered that link out to the parents. And that's how the parents found out about the program. But then we also had parents who wanted their kids to attend this time around who attended the program back in January. So a lot of the students that attended the program from January through May, a lot of those students are enrolled in the program again this time.
Go ahead.
And just to add to that, you know, I'm hearing about, you know, about the marketing. Yeah, we can market it a little different. We got some different things that can happen. But, you know, and I'll say what I've said continuously. One thing that community relationships, and sometimes, unfortunately, they start at the top. Because there was some board members as well who helped along the way, who kind of guarded, I mean, well, not guarded, kind of help in terms of putting community relations with some people along the way to get some of these sites going. So, you know, as a board member, if you know of church or you know of community groups, then that's part of what we do, community relations. You know, we have to stop this division in terms of just the district handles everything in the district. Yeah, there's certain functions where, as board members, we can help out because it is our job to have community relationships, to have community relations with people. And I've heard in certain meetings, certain people say, well, yeah, I know somebody from that department. I got a connection with that, and they turn the superintendent or different people onto their connections. That's no different than what has to be done along the way in driving some of these kids and some of these churches and community centers in the in the hands of Dr. Stratos and her staff. If we want it, sometimes we got to get out of our comfort zones, and we have to guide people to Dr. Rodriguez or however he wants to the staff, and let them know that option is open. And I'm not telling you nothing that I don't know that won't work. The division has to stop. We have to be able to not be afraid to have that open conversation, that tough conversation with people who are, okay, well, you want, and I have it in my community. We want the grade community to change. We want the kids' grade to change. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to put up? What are your organization? What steps are y'all willing to take? Are you willing to implement a program in your community or in your church or in your community? Sometimes we have to help out too. Organization leadership starts at the top, and the board is the top. So I mean, some people might not like to hear that. I'm not chopping this down. I'm just bringing that other option in, this another form of thinking, that those are great ways, other ways to engage us, to help out. And I'm just asking my counterparts to just think about that. And you may know some people in your community. You may know a tennis coach who may have a building or may only use it for a certain thing. And we may be able to tell Dr. Scrouts and her staff that, hey, maybe this is another building that you can get and you can put 25 kids and house them there. It's just food for thought. And along the way, yes, we could have some more kids, but also in terms of what Mr. Campbell said, there was a parent that was excited to store me in the grocery store. All my stories ain't bad. She had me laughing because her and the teacher was in there. She said there was a board member, and they were laughing about something at Scott. They had a song in terms of timetables, and the kid and the parent and the teacher, they were all singing it loudly in the store. And the teacher was saying, "Mom, this is from going to the after school. This is what he do." When I asked him those times, and him and a group of them, they go off with this song, and before I know it, they move on without me even asking. So those are reasons for these programs and success stories that has to transfer to the community, but also need to have more of and more understanding and more driven to have those results happen, so that we can see them, not just hear about them, but we can see them actually in the flesh. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Dr. Stratos, anything else?
No, not at this time. I'll turn the mic over to Dr. Rodriguez, ma'am.
Next item under student achievement is an update on the report card. So Mr. Fallon and Dr. Stratos will be
So this evening, board members, Daniel Fallon, our Director of Data Services, will provide an update on our state report card. The presentation was finalized today at mid-afternoon, as the embargo data was released yesterday. To lend support with potential questionings as well.
Dr. Stratos, as I see some of you looking for the data in the folder. It's not in the folder at the moment. But it is on board docs for you to pull up. It was just placed on board docs. So this is data that we just got and just received, and so we go through our process as we do that. So you'll see it fresh today.
As the embargo data was released, the presentation was completed this afternoon. So it is in board docs for you. To support with questioning as well, we have our executive directors here, Dr. Chad Cox, Dr. Celestine Levan, and Mrs. Mona Dixon. Mr. Daniel Fallon, sir.
Good evening. Now you can ask all the questions that have been embargoed. So, board members, tonight we will review the 2022 South Carolina report card. I do want to begin by recognizing the hard work of our teachers, students, and administrators during the 21-22 academic school year. On slide 1, you will see the profile of the South Carolina graduate. This is the backbone of South Carolina's ESSA waiver. The ESSA waiver is Every Student Succeeds Act. It is federal legislation that each state has an opportunity to write a waiver or their own plan against This happens to be the backbone of our ESSA waiver. You see things such as world-class knowledge, world-class skills, and life and career characteristics. These include rigorous standards in language arts and mathematics, creativity and innovation, as well as integrity, self-direction, and global perspective. If we go to slide 2, how does the profile of the South Carolina graduate, how does the South Carolina ESSA waiver impact the report card? So if we start with line 1, academic achievement, this is different for elementary, middle, and then high school. So elementary and middle school, these are grades 3 through 8. It's ELA and mathematics, and it's the SC Ready assessment. In high school, this is the Algebra 1 and English 1 end of course assessments. Preparing for success, grades 4 and 6 in elementary and middle school, that's SC Path Science. And biology in the end of course exam. If you remember earlier in the presentation, in prior presentations, U.S. history was renormed as far as the standards as well as the calibration of the assessment, so it was not included in the South Carolina report cards for the 2022 year. Student progress, this is an elementary and middle school only measure, and it is measured for students in grades 4 through 8. It is a comparison of year 1 to year 2. So an example, a 3rd grade student takes SC Ready in 2021. They take SC Ready as a 4th grader in 2022. That is analyzed to show whether or not in a value-added model that student either performed as expected, above what is expected, or a little below. This metric is worth either 40 points or 35 points for the elementary and middle school, depending on whether they have an ML population. But more importantly than the points, it's broken down between all students in the lowest quintile. So half of the points come for growing the entire building, half of the points come for growing your lowest 20%. And that does apply to each school. Each school has its own unique bottom 20%. School climate. School climate for the first time in 2022 includes both student and teacher surveys. There was an attempt in prior years to do survey system, and the only included population on the survey were students, but this year there was student and teacher feedback on the school climate. English learners' progress towards proficiency. This is measured on the WIDA Access Assessment. Again, that's year 1 versus a year 2. But it's also on a 5-year acquisition of proficiency for the English language. So the second the student enters our system and takes a screener, they start a 5-year clock towards proficiency. And there's incremental growth along the way. Students obviously do not have to and do not meet proficiency in 1 year, but a student scoring a level 1, for example, at the end of year 1 in the country, or the year 2 of the access assessment, they were to be expected to score a 1.9 for proficiency. The next 2 metrics are high school only. Graduation rate, that is a 4-year cohort model, meaning a student starting school 4 years ago is expected to finish on time with a diploma. And finally, the college and career readiness. This metric has changed over the years. The most recent definition that we are working on is the percent of the graduating class. In prior years, and sometimes what we've presented before, it's the percentage of graduates that are college and career ready. In this metric, in this year, in this report card, it is the percent of college and career students that were in the overall graduation cohort. So moving forward, South Carolina report card ratings, there are 5 levels ranging from unsatisfactory to excellent, and the definitions are before you. So excellent schools, a school receiving an excellent rating. That school performance substantially exceeds the criteria to ensure all students meet the profile of the South Carolina graduate. A school with a good rating exceeds the criteria. Schools with average ratings meet the criteria to ensure. Below average schools are in jeopardy of not meeting the criteria, and unsatisfactory rated schools fail to meet the criteria to ensure all students meet the profile of the South Carolina graduate. So with that, on the next slide is how Beaufort County schools for the 2022 academic school year scored. Are excellent schools and should be very honored and proud of these scores. Beaufort Elementary School, Bluffton High School, Coosa Elementary School, H.E. McCracken Middle School, Okatee Elementary, Red Cedar Elementary, and River Ridge Academy Middle School. Our K-8, our pre-K-8 schools, they receive 2 report cards each. They have an elementary one and a middle one. So you will see River Ridge listed in the next line as well under good. Those schools are Bluffton Middle School, Hilton Head Island High School, May River High School, MC Riley Elementary, Port Royal Elementary, Pritchardville Elementary, River Ridge Academy, and Riverview Charter School Middle. You can continue down the list of the average, below average, and unsatisfactory schools as well. So how did Beaufort County fare as it relates to the state when we look at the distribution of that 5-point rating scale? Both the state and Beaufort County have 6% of their schools or their report cards, because we do have schools with multiple report cards, scoring unsatisfactory. Below average, Beaufort County had 15% in the distribution versus the state with 16. Average, 32% of Beaufort County schools versus the state of South Carolina, 36. Good, Beaufort County has 26% of their schools, the state 22, and then excellent, both the state and the county at 21% rated excellent. So nearly 50% of Beaufort County schools received a rating of good or excellent. The next slide, hope you can see this. I will do my best to go over all of this in the data. We're going to start with academic achievement. As we've already noted under the profile, there's an elementary and middle rating, and then there's a high school rating. The elementary and middle, as a reminder, that's SC Ready, English Language Arts and Mathematics, again, grades 3 through 8. And this data on the left-hand side, in the left chart for the elementary and middle, that is data that was completed in the spring of the 2022 academic year. I've reported all student subgroup, African American, Hispanic, Caucasian, are multilingual learners, students with disabilities, and pupils in poverty. The dark blue bar is Beaufort County, the green is the state. If we look at high school, this again is English 1 and Algebra 1 on the end of course examination protocol assessment. It is a point to know on this metric for high school. The score follows the student. I know we've talked about this before, but these students on Algebra 1 and English 1 could have taken the Algebra 1 assessment back in 7th grade. So 6 years later, that Algebra 1 score hits their 12th grade years reported. So this is not going to match what was necessarily presented over the summer with the release of the end of course exams from the 2022 academic school year. This is a longitudinal cohort model. This data follows the student until they hit their graduating cohort. Typically the students, ranging from Algebra 1 could be grades 7 through 9, maybe their fall semester or their 10th grade year, English 1, 9th or 10th grade year. Usually 9. Preparing for success. This is grades 4 and 6 for SC Pass. Again, that is this year they took the assessment. It's reported this year. The same demographic groups reported. High school, this is the end of course assessment for biology. And again, this assessment follows the student. Typically, 10th or 11th grade year are when students are taking their biology exams in their courses. So it's a 2 to 3 year delay on reporting the report card biology scores versus the actual EOC scores for that academic year. Finally, as it relates to data, graduation rate and college and career readiness rates. Again, the graduation rate, that is a 4-year cohort. Beaufort County's graduation rate was 86% versus the state at 84%. In college and career readiness, this, again, the percentage of the graduating cohort that is college and or career ready, that is regardless of whether the student earned a diploma. The entire cohort in the graduating class. Beaufort County has a 76% college and career ready rate for all students across the Beaufort County School District. As Dr. Stratus mentioned, there is a team here this evening for this presentation. But that concludes the data and the report of the South Carolina report cards.
Ready for questions? Okay. Ms. Vidrich?
It's a lot to digest in a very short period of time. There is a lot to celebrate here. There is absolutely a lot to celebrate. And that's a good thing. There are some concerns. So without having had any time to preview this or anything, can we talk a little bit about a plan for our areas of concern as far as those schools that may have fallen in unsatisfactory? I mean, what is our plan? And then, Daniel, can you also help me a little bit here? Because I know we didn't have a report card since when?
2019 was the last time any school received ratings.
Right. So, and the TSI schools and the ATSI schools are based on that. So these are new TSI schools or ATS, no. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Those will come out later this calendar year, somewhere in the December range.
Okay.
The state will identify those off of this data.
Off of this data.
But they have not been identified and they have not been calculated yet.
The state has not yet, at a superintendent's meeting last week, the state basically said that they have not yet determined what they're going to do and manage this, because there are some schools that should have come off or could have come off. There are some schools that may go on, and they're not sure how to, right yet. They're sorting out how to handle it with the missed couple of years of assessments. So
Yeah.
they're working through that.
Okay, because some of those schools should have been off perhaps after 3 years and they're still on it. Okay, so back to my basic question then. Some of those schools that are listed on here as unsatisfactory, what are we thinking? How are we going to help those schools too?
So I'll bring forward Mrs. Dixon as well as Dr. Cox, but I do want to put forward that in the past year, the team of executive directors working with ISD and most of all with the school sites and educators have gone through a system of instructional reviews. You're going to hear a little bit regarding that now. You'll also hear a little bit from one school in particular, their 90-day plan, which is very pointed and specific. They're one of our UVA schools. So with that, if I could have Mrs. Dixon please come forward first. Thank you.
While they are on the way up, I just want to point out a few things. So the instructional reviews are part of what we began last year to begin addressing the significant impacts of the pandemic on student learning, okay? And there are significant impacts about it, right? We talk about that frequently. One of the things that, that we notice also is that schools with high levels of students whose families chose to stay virtual for essentially over a year, a year and a quarter, a year and a half, when you count that first year, right? That we see impacts, significant impacts there. So even though there is growth, the growth is not enough to climb out of where they were in any one given year, right? So I think that's part of the impact that we're seeing, and those instructional reviews are a critical tool in helping impact the standards-based instruction that align to the standards that students have to master. So we'll begin sharing with some specific plans that have been deployed at schools, and that schools are working through themselves. So.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having us here and presenting this information to you. So, one of our top priorities for school year is to improve academic achievement in the ratings for our Prepared for School Success, the science that is taken by fourth grade. There are several key strategies are in place to help improve academic initiative. One is the University of Virginia partnership with building systems around curriculum, instruction, assessments, data systems, and climate and culture. Another is to ensure teachers are providing, as Dr. Rodriguez says and stated, providing high quality Tier 1 instruction in the classroom. So what have we had? We've had ISD and also our human resources divisions come together and provide instructional coaches, and we also have a master teacher at Well Branch E this year. Each teacher going through a coaching cycle, professional learning communities with collaborative planning. The state has provided a new research-based phonics program we are implementing in kindergarten through fourth grade. Kindergarten through fourth grade teachers, school administrators, and other key staff members are involved in graduate level work with a 2-year commitment to professional development. The graduate level work will strengthen our knowledge of language structure, the development of reading by the brain, and how to nurture the development and the foundational literacy skills needed to do well on these assessments. Our 3rd and 4th graders, they will and have been attending a STEM lab, and we also have the project Lead the Way Science, and also with MSAP, our Z-Space machines, or Z-Space, the technology. Also, literacy and math interventionists are assigned to work with students demonstrating difficulty in reading and mathematics. We are looking at our data with MAP, iReady, also within Performance Matters with our TDAs, in our internal assessment benchmarks that we have as a district. And we are collaborating on this data so that we can drive our instruction much better. So Well Branch Elementary School will continue to focus on meeting the needs of our students through leadership, culture, and academics.
Questions? Go ahead. I don't see anybody.
So as Dr. Cox comes forward, I do want to bring to you, each of you, to recognize that the literacy program that Mrs. Dixon has shared with you is LETTERS. It is supported also by Open Court. These are required instructional tools that are being embedded into key schools here in the district, supported with a state initiative. That is also going to, you'll see that and hear a little more regarding this with Robert Smalls International Academy. Also to share with you that there has been an increased emphasis on the development of writing skills, which is 16% of the SU Ready. So I do need to share that these initiatives going forward, and as Mrs. Friedrich put forward, there's much to celebrate. Emphasis is also being placed to model or replicate what has been done at some of our successful elementary schools who went to an excellent rating. And that would be, for case in point, for Beaufort Elementary, which has done a very focused after-school program utilizing other software so we don't have our students with software fatigue into the afternoon. So with that, I do want to bring forward Dr. Cox, please.
Thank you. As Ms. Dixon said, this is the 2nd year of the existence of the executive directors in Beaufort County. And if to experience what I've seen at Robert Smalls, you would have to do it. Going in there last fall, going in there now, I know they're building a new building on the outside, but it feels like a new building on the inside. Two of the main things I'll start with, I believe in people over programs, and I want to HR. And myself, we collaborated with the principal to really go in and hire the best and the brightest and most highly effective teachers we possibly could. And it has made a drastic difference in what we are seeing now in the fall. Another thing that I want to point out is with those teachers having an exemplar to teach and show them and model for them, I got the opportunity through the instructional rounds to observe a master teacher right beside a first-year novice teacher. I've never seen anything quite like that. So you got a brand new teacher who's new to the profession with someone beside them who models that first lesson. That very next class period, that teacher gets to teach that lesson in the inverse with that model teacher in the background, and then she teaches small populations, and specifically at Robert Smalls, she focuses on writing for the students, because we know that's going to have a greater impact. One of the important things to note about Robert Smalls is if you go back to this, and we're not going to flip back and forth, but they have 2 report cards. So they don't have a true feeder system from the elementary to middle. So their numbers in elementary are quite smaller. So with that smaller population, you have students that count more in the equation. And so because of that, their administration took and reshuffled their administrative responsibilities. And they have TDAs and common assessments that they're working on. But what I applaud is in the shuffling of their responsibilities. If you go there on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, you're going to see the principal, the 2 instructional coaches, and they redelegated how their instructional coaches serve their students. They redelegated how they serve all their special populations. I got to witness the actual principal sitting with 1st grade teachers, 2nd grade teachers, 3rd grade teachers, going through these assessments, looking for exemplars to model and show their other students. It is a numbers game with them, and trying to make sure that every student, because if you're looking at a cohort, and forgive me if I butcher this, Daniel, in comparison to the way he did, but if you got a cohort of 300 students and their accomplishment, well, you got a cohort of 40 or 50 per grade level, those handful of students really make a difference. So they've narrowed down to each individual kid. They also have, in their restructuring, they took a staff member who's an MTSS coordinator, and that's the multi-tiered system of support, and going in and looking at, if the kids aren't doing well, what are we going to do both inside of school and outside of school? I actually encourage you, if you haven't been there, and I know I've seen you there a couple times, but if you haven't been there to see and experience what they have going on, I'm really excited about where they're headed and what they're doing, and they have a very prescribed plan of how they're going to get there, and that's through looking at the assessments a little bit along the way, monitoring and adjusting their instruction along the way. And I can't brag enough, they have 2 new instructional coaches in addition to that master teacher. When we have a lot of new staff that may or may not be as experienced, you get excitement, but they need guidance. And so they've got the master teacher, the 2 instructional coaches, they got the MTSS coordinator that's also going in and modeling lessons. And so we're very strategic and targeted, and I really am excited to see growth in not just the elementary side, but in the middle school side as well.
Colonel Geyer?
I also visited Robert Smalls, and in fact, they had a master math teacher there today. This guy is phenomenal. And to go in and show teachers rather than tell teachers makes all the difference in the world. But another issue is it's very obvious to me that the major impact of the virtual experience that we had over the last year and a half, the older kids seem to cope much better with it. But the younger the kids, the worse it hit them. And yeah, I guess we should have kind of intuitively known that because of their attention span and their maturity and their self-discipline tends to grow with age. But I also noticed we have demographic differences, and some of our demographics were more into the virtual because of the fear of the disease. So when I would go to schools and I'd say, well, who's taking virtual? And it was primarily African American. And the virtual just didn't work as well. They had problems with accessibility for the internet. And so we've got a lot of work to do to catch up. But I think you all know what the target is. And once you know what the target is, then you just got to make sure you got the right bullet and the right rifle to hit the target. I hate to use a military term, but yeah. But you know what? It's similarly bad.
Military.
Colonel,
I think you got some good things going.
Colonel, I think, you hit the nail on the head on choices that were made by families and the concern and the worry I think you hit the nail on the head about the younger the students are, the less effective virtual instruction was or is, you know. And I think, you know, essentially that's one of the reasons why when that year was over, you know, we essentially did away with the virtual option because it was clear that that just wasn't the way to go, you know. And you know, I will say this, you know, I think there's progress that was made from last year to this year, okay, even though there was no report card last year, but in terms of what we've seen. And it's a multi-year effort, as we've been saying, you know. You know, having said that, you know, in no way, you know, is this satisfactory, you know, or really, you know, even acceptable, right? We need to shift those bars over to the right, you know? And that's what the work is focused on, you know, the target, you know, and so I thank you for your comments, because I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Mr. Mel Campbell?
Yeah, I applaud all of the efforts and comments that were made. Of course, my question is, since there is a feeder system that's obviously not coherent, and I looked at, you know, the other two feeder schools into Roberts Malls.
Can you talk to the mic a second?
Is there a way that we are articulating between those three schools so that we're not closing the barn door after the horses get out?
Well, two of them have, actually three of them happen to be behind me. I have to share that the opportunity of having executive directors who are the bridge, actually amongst each other, but amongst our schools, looking for consistency of practice, sharing best practices. It starts with the three executive directors behind us that we've been able to have put in place for the past years. I have to share that. As they've grown at their work, so have the schools grown at their work. Some of the schools that feed into Robert Smalls, actually one school in particular, missed good by 1 point. And I have to tout that because that's Mrs. Constance Goodwine. And I have to tout that. And that is the work of the collective efficacy and agency owning what they do, sir.
Mr. Campbell, can I want to touch base on something too. I believe if you look at Will Branch Elementary School as an example, I think they missed moving out of the category by like 0.04 of a point, or
Actually, it was 0.31.
0.31.
0.31.
Okay.
They missed being below average. It's not still where we want to be.
But
yes,
I think on a structural, just bear with me for a minute here as I'm thinking through this. On a structural question that we're going to dig into and we need to look at a little bit. At Will Branch Elementary School, they have a 3rd grade and they have a 4th grade. The 5th grade is at the middle school. Okay? Here's why that's significant. Okay? Because Will Branch Elementary loses on growth opportunities for those 5th grade students. You see the impact that can have, okay? The other structural issue was already been brought up, which is the feeder issue with Robert Smalls as well. So those are things, I mean, I think we have to, we are where we are even in this year in terms of those structures. But that is something as we look forward that we probably need to reevaluate and think about.
Mr. Smith?
I'm just going to, I appreciate everyone for their work. But in terms of COVID and these scores, I hear that, but I don't, because of the fact that some of this, some of it comes from leadership, because there were some schools out there who had people and who had staff members knocking on doors to get their kids back into school. I'm talking about on Saturday and Sundays, there were principals that I know of having their staff to knock on doors to get kids back. Say, hey, look here, your child grades are horrible. Point blank, flat out, period. Your child needs to come back to school. Your child grades is going to affect test scores. Your child's not getting it. So I hear that, but I just can't get complacent with saying we all can improve somehow. So that's just one major reason of why we're where we are. I can't sit and digest that. That doesn't sit well with me, and it's uncomfortable, but it's the truth. When I've seen certain schools have certain moves, and I've seen what they've been doing, and I've been understanding, and I've had people saying, well, you know, my principal pushing. Your principal push you, and look where y'all are at. Oh yeah, you know, I told you. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, our kids, everybody appreciate it. We doing good. So I mean, some of that, you know, we have to. Unfortunately, it's tough, but we have to own that. And secondly, I'll leave that there. Secondly, my question is too, Mr. Cox stood there and he said that they had an HR, that HR was a big component in terms of the reshuffling of the school and what it looked like. That's good. But my questions are in terms of there's unsatisfactory. We're talking about unsatisfactory, but on the below average, have we done those same things? Because below average ain't too good, you know. So in terms of getting our best and brightest teachers into these other schools, you know, have we done that as well? Because I'm not just complacent with just doing that with in terms of these other schools. You know, did Well Branch Elementary School, did they do that? Did they get with the HR director, and did they make sure that we are putting the best and bright teachers in the school to work on the achievement gap? I mean, those are questions that are valid.
Mr. Smith, if you would have heard me when I first spoke, I did say that we've been working with HR and ISD. We do work very hand in hand with Ms. Walton and her team and the talent acquisition specialists about what teachers that we have going into Well Branch E, Well Branch Middle School, all of our schools actually, but especially with that partnership with University of Virginia and the partnership for leaders in education. That's one of the things, that's one of the levers that we really look at, is how we recruit teachers, not only recruit, but we retain teachers. Right. That's why Dr. Rodriguez and Ms. Walton is always talking to us about how are we growing our teachers that we're working with, but not only that, but the culture and the climate of the school, really working towards that. So all of us, and I can speak for Dr. Levan as well, that we, all three EDs, we meet with Ms. Walton and we talk with her about our schools and about if any movement. But the first thing that we always, and we recognize, is that nationwide that we have a school shortage of teachers, and that one of the things that Ms. Walton tells us, you have the teachers, is up to you and your principals and your admin to grow your teachers. And that is why we have really worked hard with Dr. Levan, Dr. Cox and myself, really worked hard with our principals about our professional learning communities, our PLCs, and where we're working with our teachers on making and ensuring that we get that tier 1 instruction. Because if we don't have that tier 1 instruction, with the assessment, you're going to continue a gap. So one of the things that we're really focused on is our Tier 1 instruction and really working with our teachers to understand the standards, understand the level of question, of depth of the web's depth of knowledge of a question within that assessment so that we can instruct and execute effectively and efficiently.
Right, and I'm glad you brought it up, but alongside of the build-up in that is we have coaches and we have master tap teachers, and we're not master teachers.
Yes, sir.
Whatever it is, but we all understand what I'm talking about. And it was brought up in maybe not the last meeting, or one of the meetings when it was said that a couple of elementary schools or so have 2 or 3 master teachers. Well, are they needed there? No, hear me out. Are they needed there, and what are they doing there? And so all this is in terms of when we're going into budgeting. And we're talking about closing these gaps. These, as a board member, these are all things that we're saying that we have a shortage. Well, if we have a shortage, if these teachers are good, then sometimes you may have to leave from the classroom. If they're that good, you might have to put them. I mean, when you look at it as a business in terms of getting the results that we need, some people may say that they need to go back in the classroom. So these are all conversations that may have to be had, and that people may be uncomfortable. These are questions that our constituents are asking us. Could you have all these teachers and you're top heavy? Would they be better utilized in the classroom? Yeah, I mean, so in the short-term version of this, because I know everybody not looking around, everybody like no. Yeah, it's an uncomfortable conversation. But the point of it is that when the constituents are asking us and people are talking about that, then I want to make sure that I can say at the end of the day, yes, the master's teachers are needed. Yes, coaches are needed. We have results. You can go to so-and-so, and these are the results. So that's why I'm asking these questions that I'm asking, because this is very important, and this is relevant information.
Mr. Smith, now, quite frankly, it's not an uncomfortable conversation.
No.
Because these are conversations we have internally, and believe me when I tell you, we beat it up pretty good, right? And so here's the deal. When you have a master teacher, and they're in one room, right, they may impact 20 kids, okay? But if you have a master teacher and you have them working alongside other teachers or supporting in other places, now they may be impacting 45, 50, 60 kids, okay? And so that is the nature of the approach. But believe me when I tell you, we battle that back and forth all the time to make sure that we think we're landing in the right place,
Right.
around that. Ms. Dixon, could you also, go ahead and comment on what you want to say, but would you also, you and I had a conversation about math and math instruction, and we were talking about one of the things that they're pushing to see more in the classrooms with manipulatives.
One of the things I want to say, first and foremost, Mr. Smith, about the master teachers do teach. They do dual role. They teach so then that the instructional coach can bring a teacher in there, like Dr. Cox said, a novice teacher, into the classroom and watch them teach. So they are doing dual role. They are teaching and they're also supporting. That was part of our plan, the initiative by Dr. Rodriguez and Ms. Walton about our master teachers, that we wanted them not only to affect kids, but also with the teachers as well. So they're doing a dual role. One of the things that we talked about with math is to make sure that, especially at our elementary schools, and being a math teacher, it is very important that we make sure that they not only get the mathematical practices, but they get to play with it, the kinesthetics. They get to utilize those math manipulatives. And one of the things that Dr. Rodriguez, we were saying is, why aren't they using the math manipulatives? So that is a conversation that we have had with our coaches, especially our numeracy coaches, to make sure that the teachers are comfortable with showing kids how to utilize the math manipulatives as well. And before releasing them to independent practice, that we make sure that they understand the expectations of the standard before releasing them to that independent practice.
Thank you, and thanks for giving that explaining what the math teacher, the master teacher, how she does two components. I'm in the school, so I've seen that, and they've kind of taught me that. So I'm glad I didn't know that, but it's still just driving the ball to the basket. My point is that just that. In terms of it, it's good for the public to know as well than just us to know. And that, Rodriguez, just to answer what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, when you're in that conference room or you're on that battlefield having that conversation among each other, yes, I understand that it's tough then, but having it publicly, to me, it's a little more tougher because you have people scrutinizing what you're saying and where funding is going, to my point. Thank you.
Dr. Watts?
So I have two things to say. First, Dr. Rodriguez, will you have any influence or input to we are still, as you already mentioned in this discussion, we have the schools that are still in the TSI priority school categories, and those are from 2019, I'm pretty sure, because I signed that agreement with the state of the South Carolina Department of Education when I was the chair, and we have certain requirements that we have to follow because of that agreement. And I guess I sort of feel personally responsible that those get done. So one of the requirements is that we have to have quarterly presentations to the board about those schools. So how long are we going to be in that category for those? I think there are 8 schools.
Yeah, honestly, I think they are working through all of that statewide because, the absence of 2 years of essentially, 1 year of no assessment and 1 year of assessment but no report card ratings and not really dealing with that issue. In essence, they're trying to sort out what makes sense as much as possible carrying into the upcoming year as they go ahead and pick them out, and then what they're going to do in terms of moving them out. Because if you remember, a couple of them could have moved right out of that, and just because they froze it, they just stayed in it, right? So there are some advantages to it, to be honest, right? Because it impacts some of the funding for those schools too, right? So, in terms of influence on it, as a superintendent, I don't have any say really on the accountability system. The accountability system is done at the state level, but I can give an opinion,
Good.
So.
All right, my second thing is, being one of the Bluffton representatives, I got to gloat. Every single Bluffton public school is in the good or excellent report card rating, and that is fabulous. And I think we want all our schools to move in that direction. This is a county-wide school system. I don't want just one area of the county to be with those higher ratings. So to me, it seems like, what are we doing at those schools? What's happening at those schools? Because that, I would think, could also be used to try to move the other schools that were, didn't do quite as well to try to move them. And I want to just say to the students, the educators, the parents in those Bluffton schools, and that's every single elementary, middle school, high schools, and there's 2 high schools in Bluffton, and a K through 8 school. Way to go. And don't let off that gas pedal.
I would say when I look at the list in different ratings, okay, one of the things that we do is to look at proliferating great practices. Okay, that's part of what we do through instructional reviews as well, right? We look at trends that we're seeing, and then we look at proliferating great practices that we've identified. Each of the executive directors has portfolio meetings with principals. Part of those portfolio meetings are instructional walk. They move them around to different schools, and they have instructional walks at each of those schools when they're there as well. It's not an instructional review, but it is an instructional walk where they go through and see instruction and highlight other specific things. That's another one of the key advantages of the work of executive directors. But it's to proliferate, to see and proliferate those great practices, to talk about the benefits. I want to call out 2 things on here. One, you see Red Cedar Elementary School. Red Cedar Elementary School, I believe, received their first excellent rating, right? They always do very well, but they've received their first excellent rating, you know, and I recall when you all were going through interviews for a superintendent, and you asked that the candidates come in and do a data dive on the system. I picked out Red Cedar Elementary, never visited it, but just on the surface by looking at data, I was able to drill down to tell you there's something special that's happening there, right? And to be able to look at how we can proliferate that is important. I'm gonna shift to another one. Bluffton High School, right, is a high school that has an excellent rating. I believe they've scored probably the highest, Daniel, that maybe anybody's ever. Don't recall 71 total points on there on the accountability system. So that's there. Another place we can proliferate practices from high schools. Beaufort Elementary School. It's not in southern Beaufort County. It's in northern Beaufort County, right? And Beaufort Elementary School has practices that have been put in place that can be proliferated even in southern Beaufort County, right? Because they have really done some remarkable work, right? So Coosa Elementary School, right? When you look at that, Coosa Elementary School is driving to move further beyond where they have even performed. They've got practices. But I'll tell you one thing that's very common when I look at these schools that are sitting there, okay? Strong PLCs, strong continuous improvement model, utilizing data to help drive instruction. It's very rich in these schools. River Ridge Academy Middle School, really this past year, the elementary and the middle school both, but did a huge dive in their data-driven instruction, right? And you see some payoffs there in the middle school, right? And you see, so those are things that on the surface, these scores just coming out, as I recollect, without going back to any of my own personal notes as I visit schools, those are things that I can call out that I see that we need to proliferate.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Campbell.
Okay, Mr. Campbell, board members, we're running into the second public comments, have to happen no later than 9 o'clock. So, Mr. Campbell, do you want to go now? Go ahead, and then in 2 minutes we'll have.
I just want to say this, and I've said this before. I've said it tonight, once tonight, and Ms. Dixon can agree with what I'm saying. Parents, those schools, these children are not failing because of you don't have the teachers in the school. You have parents that don't support the schools. Period. And we need to stop making excuses. Parents are not supporting the schools. That's the reason why the schools are where they are. And until parents do that, Mrs. Dixon can tell you, when she was at the middle school, and Mr. Doggett was at the elementary school. Those parents was in that school, they supported the school, and they, in fact, Whale Branch Middle School was the top middle school in this county. So don't tell me, it's time to stop making excuses. Parents need to get off their butt and do what they're supposed to do, period.
Thank you. Does that complete your presentation?
There's nothing to top that, ma'am, at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, we do need to stop for public comments.
Okay.
Okay. So it is 9 o'clock, so we will do our public comments. Our first public commenter is Lynn, and is your last name start with a K or an R? I can't. Greeley. Oh, it's a G. Okay. Lynn Greeley.
Yeah. Sorry, it was so cold in here. I was not able to write too well. I wanted to ask on this forensic audit, who did the audit? And was it actually a forensic audit? Because I heard it was an audit, not a forensic. It was? Okay. And who did it?
We can't respond to that, but
okay, you can't even respond where I can find the information then.
we'll tell you after the meeting.
Okay, good. All right, that's perfect. That's what I need to know. Okay, and then on the schools, what I'm thinking is that the schools should be getting the students ready for careers and everything else, not learning how to pleasure themselves with these books that they have out there. Over and over and over again, I think people have talked about these books, and never have you talked about these books. This gentleman's saying that he has to have a lawsuit to, get something done, to get these filthy, filthy books out. What they read tonight, I've read some of them, and I couldn't even believe it. I mean, I didn't even want to touch them after. It was awful. What wasn't even what they had tonight. I mean, some of the things were incestual. Sexual, the father with the daughter, these acts. Have you even read these books? I mean, I just can't even believe that nothing has been done, that you haven't read these books, and that you don't get rid of them or even talk about them. It's like, what is the problem here? I mean, it's obvious these children are getting indoctrinated for exploitation, for sexual exploitation, and for human trafficking. There's nothing in my mind that is not saying those words right there. And so I hope at the next meeting that you address this, because if you don't, it's just, there's not even any words. There isn't even any words anymore about this. That's how bad it is.
Thank you. We have one phone call.
Hello, Angela. I'm calling you for public comments. Put you on speakerphone. You have 3 minutes.
Once again, there are no curse words this time, I promise. Mr. Campbell, I just want to thank you for shining a light on the importance of parental involvement. It means a lot to educators. To touch on what Will Smith said about the school report cards improving with teacher salary increases, that's a preposterous statement. It's statements like this that make teachers leave. It seems that some people glaze over the fact that students did not have effective education for almost 2 whole years. Many people don't know just how much is expected of teachers. My husband left Beaufort County after 1 year. I left teaching a career of 20 years and my last 3 years here in Beaufort County because I know my worth and I refuse to do all this nonsensical paperwork and documentation, extra junk required of our teachers. These extraneous tasks have nothing to do with educating and reaching our students. As for those surveys that are on the report cards, teachers are pressured by most administration to write in specific answers. Ask any teacher with the nerve to speak up. Those standardized tests, the only thing they accurately measure is how well a child takes a test. Diane Ravitch, the author of much of the No Child Left Behind Act, she's written books about how wrong she was to push standardized tests. Why so much emphasis on something inaccurate and harmful? You take so much educational time away from teachers with these asinine social surveys, standardized tests, and practice for the tests. Then throw in the computer programs that must be used to prove to the district that they are being used, and the time spent troubleshooting computers, attending meetings during planning periods and lunches, covering classes, working lunch and car rider duty. What time do they have to teach or plan? I'll tell you when they plan, when they're home nights and on weekends. Mr. Smith, you said we have to have the uncomfortable conversations about how to get grades up. I think you have to do a bit of research into how master teachers and coaches work in tandem with educators. You said we have to have the uncomfortable conversations on how to get the grades up. I'll tell you how to do it. Get rid of iReady, get rid of iExcel, Newsela, USA Test Prep, and Reading Plus. Get rid of computers and go back to books. Give kids pencils and paper, have them write. Stop telling teachers they aren't worth their salaries. Give teachers time to breathe during the school day. Allow them to infuse their students with a love of learning instead of a hatred of data and testing. This is ridiculous, and you are lucky to have as many teachers as you do in this district. Mark my words, if this continues, you're going to be left with a handful of very green teachers who are too new to stand up for their students, and a handful of teachers simply waiting for retirement. I have tried to explain this to our board in the past, but no one wants to do anything real about it. Yes, you gave them money, but how about respect and educational autonomy in the classroom? If anyone else wants to discuss how to get and keep teachers, feel free to contact me. I might be outspoken, but with 3 master's degrees, all in education and supervision, and 20 years under my belt, I know my stuff. Thanks.
Thank you.
What a smart person I heard tonight. Amen.
Excuse me. Okay, continuing on, we are now up to,
Actually, I had something I wanted to finish on in terms of that. Before you said we want to hold on.
okay, one more question, Mr. Smith, and then we have to move on because we're also up, we're going to need a motion to continue the meeting. Go ahead, one more.
Okay. In terms of, in terms of, we were talking about schools and talking about the comparison to the different types of schools, and we were talking about Cusall and Beaufort. Beaufort definitely may have some students who are probably in the less fortunate area, but also when I look into basically upon the average, I also would have to commend Broad River and Laysdown Elementary School too as well, because those are definitely schools who are in the target market areas that we would want to kind of see and understand what their process of doing things, so that we can get schools who are in the unsatisfactory and below average areas, because those are schools that who have more. If you was a plumber, then those are people who are more or less likely to be your clients. So they see that. So that's something just to understand. Even we talk about the after school programs and all those other things, to understand what particular program and how what they're doing targets a certain audience, and I think those are big informational pieces when we're moving forward. I just wanted to put that out there, and also give them kudos for what they're doing too, for being average and doing what they're doing, because I'm sure it's not easy for everyone. Thank you.
Dr. Glatz?
I move that we extend this meeting beyond 9:15 to finish tonight.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of extending the meeting?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Wisniewski, aye.
Okay, any opposed? Passes 10-0. Let's proceed. So the next item on the agenda is an update on the Community Project Review Committee?
Yes,
Dr.
it's
Rodriguez?
under other matters, update on the Community Project Review Committee. At the last meeting, asked for a list of names from board members from each board member. And so I have some of that. A few board members reached out asking to see if it was possible to get some additional time on that, and that's fine. I can do that. We are going to have to move on it rather soon, because we have a timeline that we've set up that we want to make sure we stick to. But if you were not able to provide me your 2 names, if you can do that by the end of this week, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, board members, comments? No? Okay. So then we're on board business action. Okay, I'm picking Ingrid. Go, Ms. Boatright. You have the motion?
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay.
I was just going to read
right.
it. I mean,
go
is
for
it a fancy motion?
No.
No.
Oh, it's right. Oh, here it is.
I just thought Tina would want to break from, or Dr. Gladys would want to break from. Here we go. I move that we accept the donation from Greg and Tanya Ringler to Beaufort High School in the amount of $5,000 to be used for JROTC needs.
Seconded.
Okay. Ingrid Boatright made the motion. Will Smith seconded it. The motion is to accept a generous donation. Any discussion? Mr. Smith?
I just wanted to say I would definitely like to thank them for their generation donation, and we they're generous. Excuse my tongue tied for their generous donation, and we definitely appreciate that. I'm sure at Beaufort High School and the community, every little bit helps towards the bottom line. We definitely appreciate them, and we'll take more if they got it. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Wisniewski,
That's
aye.
Dr. Wisniewski, aye. That's 10-0. Thank you. And now we move on to the consent agenda. I need a motion.
Go for it.
Okay. I move we accept the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
William Smith, second. The motion on the floor is to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Madam Chair, I'm going to abstain. I was not at the October 4th meeting. My
Okay.
apologies.
So it's 9-0-1. All right. Next item on the agenda, future agenda topics.
Madam Chair, I have one.
Yes.
I'd like to have a discussion on the development of district standards for library and media center content, to include an audit for and removal of any obscene or sexually explicit material. And I can put that in the chat for y'all, since that was kind of long.
Okay. Ms. Friedrich? Were you raising your hand?
I did, but
Okay.
Dr. Wisniewski
Got it.
captured it.
Okay, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, that's added to our future topics list for a future agenda. Announcements? Mr. Smith?
I was going to say,
Okay. Second, we've already done that. Now we need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second? Okay.
We didn't even need the
Angela Middleton, second.
extension.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.